What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the JJSports podcast. Joining me today, I'm Joey.
I'm Josh.
Let's get started today. Our first topic of the day is basketball. Always a first. So a lot of things happen, Josh. But so I wanted to I like when we do our what's it called? What would you call it when I say like the person has a breakout game? Is that how you would describe it?
Is that how it is?
Okay. Well, no, because all right, Josh. So I know you're not the biggest basketball fan, but do you remember this year's draft, right? Who were the top 3 picks or like the top 3 like consensus players?
Honestly, I don't even I could tell you I know Edwards was one, and do I have this
Right.
correct?
Okay,
James
so
Wiseman was 2.
So Edwards, tell me what your thoughts are on this. Did he have his breakout game? He scored against the Suns, a good team, 42 points. What do you think about this from a rookie like Anthony
Look,
Edwards scoring 42
obviously scoring 42 points your first time ever is huge. Obviously breaking 30 points your first time ever, even 20 your first time ever, and even 10 in some cases your first time ever is crazy. And 42 does seem unreal after all the number barriers I just mentioned. But just know one thing. Yeah, he's a rookie and he's got a lot of promise clearly because he did go number 1 overall. But I want to make this clear, and this is in any sport, any player can get hot for one game, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, or hockey. Like, we've seen it. We both know it, Joey, whether we want to.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a certain player in another sport that had a hot game. So, but
exactly.
Yeah,
sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that guy that we're going to talk about is a little more proven, obviously being in the league a lot more than Anthony Edwards been as a basketball player. But just to let it be known that anyone can get hot for a game. But obviously, if this becomes a regular thing, or I don't want to say he'll be scoring 42 on a consistent basis, but I mean, his scoring's gone up over 20 points in what was it, 5 straight games, after. And before that, it was, he just missed under before. So his scoring's been up there clearly. I think that it's safe to say he's slowly been progressing. I don't know that he's necessarily this is his breakout game of the entire year, though. I think that, rookies no one said that with Zion last year,
Yeah.
No one assumed, he broke out. He's
a little different because Zion was
a year, I think, for a rookie to really position themselves. And then the second year, you could decide if they had a decent rookie year, if you saw the progression and that they grew as a player, that you could consider when their breakout game or when their breakout season comes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I just think it's cool, man. Like, he's a rookie. Like, I wonder if this kind of game puts a player in for rookie of the year or not, or is it just one game? Tough to say. I mean, he's on the worst team in the league, I think. One of them.
One of the bottom 3 at the very least.
So it's not great.
Yeah.
And then here's a player who was also a top 3 pick. I think he was actually number 1. If I believe, this guy, he's kind of fallen out of grace recently, but he might be reviving his career. I don't know. Tell me what you think of a 40-point performance. 40 by Andrew Wiggins.
Andrew Wiggins was the first overall pick. That was back in 2014, I think, by the Cavaliers.
Right, and that's resulted in the trade for Kevin Love, which started the big acquisition.
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, I love him. He's on my fantasy team, and I what's it called? Ever since he got drafted, I haven't been a big basketball fan, but he is one of the guys I've followed a little more over my time watching it, even if I haven't strictly been following it up until this year. But he's been, a fun, solid player to watch. Not going to blow you away with any insane dunks or shooting ability or insane defense. He's just an overall well-rounded player. I think the Golden State Warriors made a nice move bringing him in. He's only 26, and he's formed some nice chemistry with guys on his team, most notably Draymond Green. Him and Green make a very nice tandem when it comes to moving the ball up the court, and then especially when you set a guy like Stephen Curry up for 3-point shots. But I think, Joey, in the game he dropped 40, I don't think Curry played in that game. I could be wrong, but I don't believe Curry was in that game for Golden State.
Let me take a second just to check.
Yeah, I think that we should.
So, I mean, that would be very significant because he would.
That would be significant. I mean, they still won. So, I mean.
No, the fact that he would take over, if that's true. Yeah, I don't see Curry in here. Wow.
I don't see Curry. And he's not going to be on the bottom because he's not playing less than at least 30 minutes a night. So,
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
so Wiggins took control because like
yeah. And as I mentioned, look, Wiggins with the points and Green 13 assists, and they played the exact same amount of time, I believe. And I know it says 34 minutes, but I saw the paper the day after it came out, and they have like their exact time stated. Both of them played the exact time, minutes and seconds. So I mean, like there you have it.
wow, he took advantage and good for him, man. Good for him.
Yeah.
So all right. Now one more big just single point performance, and then we get into the performances I get really impressed by, is a guy who I want to know your opinion of. Is this guy heading into top 10, top 5 player territory, at least this season, is Mr. Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal scoring 43 against the Jazz, who are the best team in the West, or at least were last time I checked.
Well, I think they're the best team in the NBA record-wise.
Right, exactly. So what do you think? I mean, you know how bad the Wizards are, so to come out playing,
I think I thought, to be honest, I thought he was already a top 10 player after the first to half of the season that's gone by.
I know, but you have to wait and see to be sure it's not a fluke.
Right, right. Well, look, we know he could shoot the ball as well as almost anyone in the league. You know, obviously, maybe not like Stephen Curry and Kyrie Irving.
Right.
Definitely about as well as anyone can in the league, minus the best of all time, arguably at this point. And Bradley Beal is only 27 years old. He's entering the prime of his career. He's going to be around a lot longer. And if this is, where he's taking his game to now and his elevation and really breaking out. We know he was a solid player before, but as you mentioned, is he hitting top 5, top 10, maybe top 5 territory right now, at least for this season? I think it's safe to say he's definitely a top 10 player this season. I mean, look at those points. 17 is the lowest number on this. I mean, like he's averaging 32.1 points a season. He drops 29 against the Kings, who are pretty, beaten down team, but 43 against the NBA's best record team in the Jazz. Like, that's crazy. And also, I mean, like, he didn't shoot too well from 3-point, but we know he's a great 3-point shooter, Joey. You and I both. I mean,
he's phenomenal. I mean, like
almost 40% in his career. That number's a little bit lower this season, not by much, about 4%. But still, I mean, look, his strength is definitely his scoring as opposed to his rebounding skills or even his assists sometimes. But he's been consistent with assists. I mean, 5 assists in 3 games. I think he is a top 10 player this year. Whether he'll hit top 5, I think he'll have to keep this type of play up throughout the rest of the year. And even if his team doesn't do well, that doesn't change him as a player, how well he played. So I think I think it's safe to say he's definitely a top 10 player in the league this year, at least, or has been one this year. Whether he'll hit top 5 territory, I don't know. That's going to be tough with the Jokic's and Giannis Antetokounmpos and Luka Doncic and Damian Lillard and all those guys. So, we'll see. But I think he's definitely a top 10 player right now. I'd probably have him around the number 7 or 8 spot right now if I had to put him there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for him. And, speaking of the Wizards, now we get into the big stuff. They suck, but their 2 players, Beal, great game. Look at the stats of the last 3 games of Russell Westbrook. Triple-double machine. And then, look at that.
What's new also.
Look at these, man.
It's crazy.
And look who it's against. Holy crap. By the way, I feel like people have been clowning on Russell Westbrook. Don't forget, he's 2-3 years removed from that triple-double breaking season where he was hands down the MVP. People got to stop sleeping on Westbrook. I don't think he's the best point guard in the league, but he's definitely one of the best.
He's a top 10 point guard in my opinion.
So, 100% top 10.
You've got your Currys and your Lillards, obviously, and even Kyrie Irving now.
Right.
Because Westbrook has been on the decline a little bit recently, but is he he might even be top 5 still. I would put him number 5 right now. Who goes ahead of him? Not Kyrie Irving, maybe. Actually, no, maybe Kyrie Irving.
Depends if you consider James Harden a point guard, but yeah.
No, I don't consider him a point guard. He's a shooting. I consider him a shooting guard or small forward.
Donovan Mitchell, maybe.
Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if he's better than Westbrook just yet. I mean, Mitchell's still coming onto the scene as a breakout type player who's been fantastic. Don't forget, don't get me wrong. But Westbrook, who's still a little more established, I know he's been a little on the decline, but he still has it clearly.
Yeah.
I would probably he's top 5. I'd put
Chris
him on
Paul,
the
Chris
podcast.
Paul for sure. Chris Paul, I think, is better technically.
Yeah, I wouldn't put Westbrook any higher than 4. Let's just put it that way. There are definitely at least 3-point guards, 4-point guards I'd put ahead of him. And even if he's not top 5 may be a bit of a stretch. I would personally rank him as the number 4 or 5-point guard still.
Yeah. I mean,
if you're gonna talk all overall careers, he would be in the top 2 right now. Like, it would probably be him and Stephen Curry, because Damian Lillard really doesn't have that many accolades. Great player, but like, you know what I mean? Like, Westbrook has been to the finals. He's had chances to win titles. He's led the MVP in the past. All those things. Like, so yeah. But like this season, I would say he's probably around 5, 4 at best in the top 5 point guards. But anyway, yeah, I think like the numbers show he still has it.
Right. And then 2 other triple doubles I want to talk about. Obviously, from the Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
And there's no shock here either.
31, 15, 10. And although the team sucks, still just monster game by him. He's just a beast.
Yeah.
They don't call him the
Wizards
Greek
might
for
suck,
nothing.
but
They don't call him for nothing. So, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the Wizards might suck. I don't know what their record is, but their record isn't indicative of the way they play, because even though I know we just spoke about Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, they still have players who are trying to fill the roles, like Davis Bertans and of course they're not, the 9th overall pick this past year, Danny Avdija, who's still breaking into the scene. So we'll see where it goes. But I don't think the record's indicative. Like, they put up fights still, like even against the best of the best, they they're not always blown out of the water. I mean, they beat the Nets recently, so there you have it.
That's true. And then finally, I have to bring this up. I'm a big fan of this team, and although they haven't had the best games, they had some. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Josh. You've been kind of screwed, from the refs in the past few games, but let's at least talk about one positive, in my opinion, and that's Julius Randle also hitting a triple-double against the Magic, right? And
that was huge because they needed it.
But that was a great game by him. We need that win because we were sandwiched by bad games, like not just by us, but like by the refs. Like the refs just, I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to make a point
about it.
Last night, I very rarely make excuses like this, but last night in that overtime loss, I don't know what the hell the refs were thinking. I really don't
get it.
How it's not a question. Like, they didn't grant New York a timeout, but they also didn't grant them a challenge. And by that logic, they have at least one or the other. They either have a timeout or they have a challenge.
I was like, why? Like, you're supposed.
Yeah, that's what, like, Tom Thibodeau was arguing with them last night. Like, wait, then if you're not giving me a challenge, then I still have a timeout. And they were like, no, you lose your timeout. Why would he lose his timeout? The only way he would lose it is if he challenged and the challenge failed. That's the only way he would lose it. So the refs basically just took a timeout away from him. That was ridiculous. I don't understand it. And I just want to point out that, yes, like, there were only 2 referees last night, and Mike Breen and Clyde Frazier on the broadcast were clearly stating and making it about as clear as it can get that third referee not being there is a game changer. And certain times, like, they were able to get the right calls, but that moment right there, whether you didn't know if he challenged or called a timeout, and if he didn't because they didn't let him have either one, then he had a timeout at the very least and could have drawn up a play and advanced the ball. And if Randle has like more time, he's going to set and knock down that shot, And I mean, like, I can't get, like, that's the time where it hurts them the most. You would have thought that, like, maybe on, like, the turnover they reviewed earlier, whether it was off Block or Howard, but they got that right and they didn't need that. It hurt the most in this last case. I also just want to but like, while they did lose, and I know Randle missed the shot, he's the whole reason they got there, though, So I do want to give him props. Yeah, he hit that shot, that ridiculous shot, step back 3 in the corner with Tobias Harris.
That was great, by the way. It kind of reminded me of Kawhi's shot.
Crazy bounce. Like, it was everything you wanted, and you heard Mike Breen calling it like he called a playoff game in the past. With
I love when he does that,
Yeah, like, so, yeah, props to them. And I don't think – I just want to say, like, I know the Sixers were missing Embiid, but the Knicks were without both Derrick Rose and Elfrid Payton. We both know what both those guys have done, especially since Rose came over and has started to help Peyton offensively, because we both know Peyton's way more of a defensive oriented point guard, but he's able to move the ball and penetrate. So not having those two players is killer. I genuinely believe that if they would have had one or the other, and definitely if they had both, that they could have pulled this one out, and they could have pulled it out 5 nights ago against the 76ers as well. But whatever, it's already in the past. And
Yeah,
I don't know if they have
yeah.
any more games against Philly this year, but I definitely think that they'll be able to beat them at full strength.
No, it's just like frustrating when everyone's like, "Oh, you couldn't beat him without Embiid. You couldn't beat him without Durant." I'm just like,
Yeah, I'm like, the
we
Knicks were
didn't have our
short-handed.
point guard, you know.
They were shorthanded too.
Like this is a point guard driven league, you know. Like it's very hard to win without a point guard. Like very hard,
Yeah.
you know.
So
Unless you're like LeBron or Giannis, you're not winning without a point guard. It's just not gonna
yeah,
happen.
there's not really much to say about it. It's just like, look, it wasn't a great offensive effort from the Knicks. Like in the first, like, they were sloppy. So were Philadelphia. Combine that with, referees blotching calls on both sides, then whatever, it's over with. And the only thing they could do is just come back the next game and rebound.
Okay, and before we get to baseball, I forgot to mention something. So Luka also, he had a 42-point game, 43, 42, yeah. Thoughts on that? If you want to go or not, or we just move on?
Not really. I'm just going to let it speak for itself. I think he's a top 5 player in the game right now. I
Do you
mentioned it when
think
we spoke
this
about
solidifies a case for MVP, or do you think no, there's other players more suited?
I still think that Jokic is on pace to win it right now, but like, everyone's talking about Luka Doncic as, one of the guys who can knock him off this year. So yeah,
Okay,
I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and then the last thing is the Bucks made a pair of trades. The first one was they traded Torrey Craig to the Suns for cash. I don't know if you remember Torrey Craig. He used to be pretty good. And I guess you won't care about that one, but you definitely will care about this one, okay? And you won't believe this. I don't know if you heard this, but the Rockets traded, the Bucks traded for PJ Tucker. They traded DJ Augustine, who they got this offseason, for PJ Tucker. So what do you think about this move, Josh? I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's pretty good. PJ Tucker is a very, very good defensive player, and I don't know how much the Bucks need DJ Augustine. Obviously, I'd assume that's why they were able to ship him out. He's a pretty sturdy point guard. He'll make his plays, and I think he's been coming off the bench for the most part this year. But he hasn't been terrible. The Rockets could use some of that. Obviously, they don't have James Harden, and they got Victor Oladipo, but he hasn't been healthy really for the most part at all since coming over. And he's not even a point guard; he's a shooting guard, if I have that correct. So definitely, I think something they needed. He's a nice guy who could help out with a nice acquisition who could help out with John Wall and the depth options there. And now, if he's going to come off the bench, or even if he's going to start, either way, with Wall or DJ Augustine, you definitely have a general who can move the ball. And they have their options. It's just I don't know I don't know how much PJ Tucker is going to come and impact this Milwaukee team that's already insanely good defensively. And obviously, like, he's going to. I just wonder if it I wonder if it really makes them a game-breaking team now. Like, they thought they were doing that before when they brought in Drew Holiday and DJ Augustine, but now I'm not saying it's a bad acquisition by any means. I think that even trade both teams, probably the Bucks get the better end of it, but they're already a very, very good defensive team. So I don't know if it makes them deeper, but does it take them to the next level and say we're like the elite of the elite defensively? That's what I think.
Right. And then the second thing, which the
I
last
thought this was the second thing.
Sorry, third thing, last thing. Last fully basketball news. Okay, so I don't know if it was because of what happened. We talked about the NSMAX slur, but he shipped the hell away Myers Leonard to the Thunder for Trevor Ariza. Thoughts about this?
Yeah, get him out of town. The only thing that shocks me about this is why would anyone want him on their team after the vocal vocality that he just associated himself with last time we came to you guys on the podcast and we addressed this. I just you gotta watch what you say. You know,
Yeah, I mean, like
I
you're
just
all followers and stuff.
they
Like,
shipped him out, and I'm proud Miami. Like, more than just the NBA when Adam Silver making the decision. Yeah, he's going to be suspended. He's going to be fined. But at the same time, like in Miami wanted him out also clearly. But like I don't know why OKC would want him.
maybe I think because Trevor Ariza like is pretty old and he has like a big cap hit, so I think that's why. Um,
I mean, but now
also,
are they
also
going to
they
be
don't have a freaking good
suspended for
player,
them?
so yeah.
All right, whatever. I'm not. It's not like a player thing. It's like the personality thing. Like I understand. Like they want to get rid of Ariza, but like, do they want to take a guy who's going to risk being suspended again and not being able to play for them now? Like, is that
I don't
like
know.
how
I
much that
mean,
means?
I guess the second round pick was too good to pass up. 2027 second round pick
I guess,
must be a good draft.
but
Yeah, who
all
knows?
right.
But yeah, so that's it for basketball.
Yeah.
So do you want to say your news first or mine?
Yeah. So we're gonna do a couple things in baseball. We're gonna keep it relatively short. But first off, I think that this is the big fish in the water that needs to get pulled out first, and that's that Francisco Lindor has finally been offered a contract by the New York Mets for an extension past the 2021 MLB season. It's not specific as to which numbers were specifically mentioned in the contract. The Mets made an offer for just under 300 million. So if I had to guess, it'd probably be anywhere from 290 to 300 or just under 300. Francisco Lindor did not accept, and he made a counter offer well over 300 million. And I would have to assume that that'd probably be anywhere from like 340 to 360 million. Obviously, we all know Tatis Jr. got a contract extension of 340 for 14 years. You also got to take into account he's 5 years younger than Lindor, though. So the 14 years kind of makes sense. And I don't know how many years they offered it for. That wasn't clear between the Mets and Francisco Lindor. So I definitely think they're going to get something done. Lindor didn't laugh in the Mets' face by saying, that's ridiculous. I would never take that little in terms of a contract. And the Mets didn't laugh at Lindor saying, we would never pay that to you. And, that was basically what happened. The ironic thing is, or I don't know if it's really ironic, but the thing that happened right after, which really like worked well in Lindor's favor, is in 3 straight spring training games after that, in 2. One prior, he hit his first home run. That was, I think, on Wednesday last week. The contract offer was made either late Thursday or early Friday. Mets had a game Friday, and Francisco Lindor hit a grand slam after his counteroffer was declined by the Mets. And that was basically his way of saying, pay me. I'm worth it. I'm not BSing you. Like, I think I am. He, like Joe, you and I both know Lindor's not an overly vocal guy, publicly. He is in the clubhouse. He tries to be a leader, but he's not cocky about it. He's not demanding all this. He said, he's not dying for a long-term contract, but he would be in favor. He wouldn't be against one. So anyway, and then again yesterday, hitting another home run. So he's homered in 3 straight games that he's played, because the Mets have played games, but he hasn't started in all of them. They want to, try to give everyone a chance. And Lindor's basically a lock to make the opening day roster anyway. I'd be shocked if he was benched and not even on the roster. We both know that's not going to happen though. So anyway, contract update, and as soon as we get more, we'll definitely let you guys know. But Joey, what do you have for baseball?
I just want to say though, I feel like it's kind of weird to read too much into spring training. Like it's spring training, you're playing against AAA pitchers and batters a lot of the time. So
I
like,
should mention he hit all those home runs off starting pitchers like that were normally in the rotation.
but also it's just like pitchers don't. Not all pitchers try as hard. Like if they're guaranteed a spot, there's no reason to try. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, the 4 and 5 guys are gonna fight, but if it's your ace, right? You know, like you think like Trevor Bauer does not have to try. Like I don't know if you saw his video, but he literally posted a video how on one of his at bats he literally pitched with one eye closed. I don't know if you saw that video. So I'm just like, you know, also like why are you offering contracts in spring training? Like it's not even a real game. It's like a meaningless game. Also, like wait a year. You know, like Tatis did not get his extension until after a year already playing. You don't offer
Well, the
someone.
Mets don't have a year to extend Lindor. That's the problem. And they know that if he goes free, they want to keep him. Trust me. If there's any shortstop the Mets want right now that they have a chance and a connection to, it's Francisco Lindor. The
I know
problem being that
this kind of
he's
thing is
done
like,
after this year.
but this kind of thing is like a massive distraction. You know, like
Well, that's why he wants it done during spring training. Because as you mentioned, he said, as you mentioned, it's not that important. It's just a way for players to stay loose and, not be completely out of, playing in game shape when the actual season rolls around. For Francisco Lindor, he said he's trying to focus on both, but he said he doesn't want it to become a distraction during the regular season. So if he can get a contract deal done before the regular season starts, then, that's when he'd be more comfortable trying to do it. But he doesn't want to bring his attention off of spring training. He still wants to focus and play his game and get ready. Because don't forget, I know that we both know he's an all-star caliber player, but it's a completely new environment for him. And he's slowly, building himself into the system here.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's only got a few days, so better move. We gotta get a move
Yeah,
on.
I mean, like, I think it'll get done. I'm confident that they will get a contract.
But we'll have to see, won't we?
Yeah. So anyway,
so my thing, I'm still got the basketball hat on because it's semi-related to basketball.
you've got a Yankee hat on.
No, but I'm saying I still got the basketball under. Because the king of basketball right now, LeBron James, has just become a minority owner of the Boston Red Sox, Josh. And I don't know if you know this, he's been proclaimed as a Yankees fan. He's also been a Cowboys fan, stuff like that. So anything to read into this, like anything to say?
Not much. I'm kind of shocked. I thought if he was going to go into any team as a part-time owner, it'd probably be Cleveland, because that's where he spent the majority of his career, and that's the team he seems to be caught at on camera the most. And I think that's the one he's like the most supportive of vocally. Like you always see, like, on social media, like when the Indians were a playoff team back when they had Lindor and Corey Kluber and all those guys. The team, that
Jose Martinez,
and they were a World Series caliber team, that he was at the games, he was attending, he was hyping them up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those social media platforms. Now he becomes a part-time owner with the Boston Red Sox. I mean, that's an interesting turn of events. That came out of nowhere.
I mean, you see usually it's former players, but you see players like do this, like I know Aaron Rodgers, he's a part owner of the Bucks. I think there are other players I'm trying to remember, but that's one of them.
Right.
Obviously, Michael Jordan, he's the luckiest one because he owns a franchise in the NBA, not even another league team, like his own league. So, I always Magic Johnson, he's a part owner of the Dodgers. Right. So very, very interesting when people make moves like this, I always wonder what it means for their for their future. So, like, is he going to start rooting for Boston now, or is this nothing? Because he's Cleveland, he's rooting for Cleveland, he's rooting for the Yankees. So now he's Boston. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, does he bring in money now to Boston more than they had before?
I really don't know. Well, I mean, like, by that logic, I would be wondering the same thing when Steve Cohen was a part-time owner with the Mets. Like, he theoretically could have. I know he only owned like 6 to 8% of the team, but he was still the richest owner on the planet, or part-time owner on the planet.
But I'm talking about like marketing money, because
LeBron.
LeBron James has all these endorsement deals.
Yeah, I was
wondering if he would use any of that clout to give things to the Red Sox, because he's an owner, so it would benefit him as an owner. He'd make more money if he's able to market the team. That's all. I don't know if he's interested in that, because baseball is not marketed as much as basketball. So I was just wondering if he would put in his like marketing for that. I don't know. That's what I was talking about.
I'm not sure.
Because he's a player. He's a player, so he has that clout.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, let's get into your your suggested topic today. You go first.
All right, guys. So we're going to be talking about we want to keep it slightly shorter for baseball because we do have a very special surprise for you coming up on the episode. But with that being said, we were going to originally do the most underrated player from each team in baseball, similar to what we did for hockey last year, but we don't want it to take that long. So we're going to do the top 5 players in the entire MLB, not American League and National League, in all of MLB, who we think are due and will have a bounce back season. And this is not necessarily going to be in any particular order, on who had the worst seasons last year. That wasn't the goal, but mine are going to be slightly in that order. So how are we doing? So you want to go 1-1?
Let's do 1-1.
1-1. Okay. So I'm going to go with my first pick. And like I said, these aren't going to be in any particular order. So number 1, first and foremost for me, has to be Christian Yelich. I mean, He's a top 10 player in baseball right now. And last year, a lot of people are giving him crap. His team made the playoffs, but he was nearly nowhere to be found. He wasn't the Christian Yelich that they saw in 2019 and in 2020, and even in the second half of 2017, before he really broke out and became just like a flat out all-star. So I think that he's the first guy to bounce back. What about you?
Yeah. So I have one question. If we have the same one, should I do the same one? Like, I just say I agree with you.
If you think there's a different order, like, then fine.
No,
But
because I just feel like, okay, so I'm just gonna say this. Christian Yelich was my number one. He was
okay, fine. So I mean, like, I'm not doing mine in any particular order.
No, I know, but you have the same one as mine. So if you have the same one as mine, I'm just gonna say I had that one too. Christian Yelich is my number one. By far had the worst 2020 season, and it's the most significant because the dude was the MVP 2 years ago, and he legitimately can make his case for a top 5 player in the game. Okay, because of that. So this was, and let's just be honest, man. If you had a bad 2020, but you had good years before, you're still a good player. Okay. But if you had good years before and you had a good 2020, you're one of the best. Like, it speaks even more to you. But that doesn't mean you're a bad player if you had a bad 2020, if you had good years before. So that's why I'm thinking all these. These are all the players I picked are players that had good years before. Okay. So Yelich is obviously the top of this list, man. MVP, enough said.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on to my second pick. This is another, I think, pretty obvious one. Not as obvious as Christian Yelich, but I'm going to go with the reigning MVP in 2019, Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger got off to a dreadful start, and then he was also out with COVID issues and everything. He eventually, got sort of back to his form, really in the playoffs. That's when you saw him become, the player that or get back to the level of playing that he was able to keep up with the entire 2019 season. The problem is that, for about the first 35 to 40 games that his team played, because he didn't play in all of them, he was dreadful. He was a liability at the plate. He had like 2 home runs. And, his stats on the season in the end, even though he bounced back well towards the end, didn't end up being that great. So that's why it's not as obvious, but I think that it's still notable that he is going to be one to bounce back and, is definitely among those in that category.
Yeah, so just before I say my next one, full disclosure, I did not pick people like Bellinger, Lindor, because they still made the playoffs and they were still pretty good. Like they technically didn't seem like they had a bad year. I talked about people that just like it was glaringly different from the year before. So
I mean, we have different opinions then. So
no, I know. I'm saying not all lists are created equal. So so my second one I want to go with was Chris Bryant, because like this dude, we all know who a great player it is. I mean, the Cubs in 2016 had that amazing core of Bryant, Rizzo, Schwarber, Contreras, and Baez. And you also had people like I think Hayward and Dexter Fowler. Like you just had a good core. But the top of that was Rizzo and Bryant, man. They were like what the A's are now with Olsen and Chapman, just like a corner monster. Just amazing offense, amazing defense, just great players. Chris Bryant was just amazing player. He felt like an MVP type player, in that league. Like he never was, but he always felt like one. So, he just had a horrendous year. But like I know that I can attribute this for a million reasons why he had a bad year. Number one, the pitching staff was like terrible, for him. And I feel like if you're like, I don't know if this is true, but I have a feeling like if your pitching staff is not great, their confidence is a lot lower because like you don't feel like you can win the game because your pitching already puts you in a hole. That's number one. Number two, new manager. They had a new manager. He did a great job getting into the playoffs, but they were not ready. Like props to them getting there. They were just not ready. They're not a playoff team. They did a good job, but like he just not have a good year. So like that. And then number three is just like the schedule, man, like Corona and everything. But that you get the feeling he's gonna have a good year because the fact is people are still trying to trade for him. All these teams are trying to trade for him. The two names I heard everyone want to trade for was Arenado and Bryant, because they're some of the best third basemen in the league, right? And Arenado happened and Bryant didn't. But just because it didn't happen doesn't mean people don't want him. I mean, a lot of teams would kill to have a player like Chris Bryant. So I think that he's my second choice for sure.
Anyway, that brings me on my third, and this one's going to be a little more obvious on the list, but I'm going to go with Jose Altuve of the Houston Astros. I know cheating scandal aside, and I've made it clear that he used to be my favorite player, and because of finding out about this thing, that I have completely lost all respect for him as a player. Like, I don't respect many of the Astros on that team, at least the hitters. We both know how each other.
I only respect the pitchers because they couldn't have benefited.
Right. And anyone who wasn't on that team, who
Right, like
wasn't on
Brantley. I like Brantley.
that system.
So
Yeah, I like Michael Brantley. Brantley had a pretty solid year last year. Regardless of that, Jose Altuve, definitely not the all-star caliber season for him. Now, I definitely don't think he's going to come back to that form yet in 2017, 18, and 19, the cheating scandal and all that. His numbers really did jump up a lot. But with that being said, he was not complete garbage. He was still an all-star player before, not the lock that you knew was going to be the starting second baseman on the all-star team, but he was still good for anywhere from 20 to 25 home runs a year, 80 to 95 RBIs, around 170 to 185 hits, stole bases, very good gold glover. So I don't think that he's going to be that insanely highly rated player that he was from, really 2017 and on. I definitely think, though, he's going to have a bounce back year in 2021.
Yeah. I hear where you're coming from, but 3 things. 1, he's a fucking cheater. I don't care. 2, new managers. That might be a reason, like AJ Hinch was his guy. Also no cheating.
Well, look,
so.
he did start to heat up in the playoffs. So we know that, he didn't.
But also no cheating might have had something to do with it. No cameras, but I don't know. We'll never know. That's the problem. Because of what they did, we'll never
You don't know how to trust.
We'll never know how good he really was. So
I mean, before how good he was because there was no cheating aside when his team was complete dumpster fire. But now,
he wasn't MVP player yet.
Right, he wasn't an MVP, but he was still a very solid player.
Yeah, all these guys were probably solid because they all had okay 2020 years. But the big drop off might have just been because there was no cheating. I don't know. You can say that's what I hate.
Look, 60 games is 60
games, new manager. I know. So that's why I'm saying that's the problem though. You'll never know for sure.
Like anyone could get hot or cold for 60 games. We all know.
Right. Exactly. Some people need a second half to break out. We all know how about the Nationals. That team would never make the World Series if they only had 60 games because they were dead last. Yeah. Okay. My next choice is Mitch Garver. To me, the Twins on paper had one of the best lineups in MLB, maybe the best. It's really debatable. But at the end of the day, that playoff streak, I don't even know what it is up to now, like 15, 16, just straight loss.
I think it might even be 18.
I don't know, man. It's terrible, man. And even before that, Mitch Garver just did not do well. I mean, he's supposed to be one of the headliners for this thing. Obviously, you got your Cruzes and Donaldsons, but he's supposed to come after them, him and Sano and Polanco. But, I don't know what happened to him. It was, weird. I don't know what he was doing, But I have faith that he'll come back because the years before him and everyone else on that lineup just studs.
Yeah. I mean, in 2019, he averaged a home run every 10 at bats. That's ridiculous.
Dude just raked, just beauty, So he's for sure for me, definitely gonna come back. I feel it. With that lineup, anything's possible.
Okay, and that brings me on to my 4th pick. This might be a bit of a shocker, but I'm going to go with Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals. Really not a strong 2020 after a very strong 2019 and 2018 and 17 and 16. And even though he wasn't complete garbage, he just wasn't Max Scherzer. It didn't look like the Cy Young caliber pitcher we saw the last 5 to 6 years prior. This is a guy who has 3 Cy Youngs in his career, and 2 of those 3 have come within the last 4 to 5 years. And even in the 2 years he didn't win it, when Jacob deGrom won it, you could make a case that if not for Jacob deGrom, Scherzer would have won the Cy Young both of those years. It's ridiculous how good a pitcher he is that he just completely fell off in 2020. And like I said, the numbers weren't even that horrendous. His ERA was still around 3.5 to 4, but the strikeouts were down. Obviously, his team wasn't winning as many games after they went on that magical run in the second half of the season and through the playoffs and eventually won the World Series, where he was an absolute stud, as he normally is. But 2020 just felt different. The Nationals were a team that fought around and stayed in games, but they just didn't have it. And I know Juan Soto was out for the first 10, 15 games of the year. He was on fire ever since he came back. So you can't make the excuse. It had to be on their pitching, and Max Scherzer was a part of that. And he just didn't get the job done. I think he's due for a bounce back year. As for most of the Nationals, quite honestly, but he's the number 1 guy for me.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that because full disclosure, I didn't pick any pitchers because I feel like most of these guys, it's just with the 60 games, you're only playing you only play 10 games the whole year. So I just don't think it's fair to pick pitchers, in my opinion, because in any other season you get way more than 10 games, unlike a batter who gets all the games possible, right?
Right.
So, but it's funny you mentioned the Nationals because I did pick somebody there. I picked Adam Eden.
Well,
This
he's
dude,
not on the Nationals anymore.
no, but he was last
Oh,
year.
fine.
So this dude in that 2019 was one of the biggest. I thought that 1 through 4 or 5 was just deadly. Rendon, Soto, Eden, Robles, Eden, Turner, and Robles. Like, wow. Or was it Kendrick? Either way, just
Kendrick it was.
yeah,
Robles.
it was Kendrick. Like, wow. Like, oh my God. Like Adam Eden, I think he was 2 or 3. I don't even remember. I'm trying to remember what the order was.
He was 1.
He was he was the leadoff hitter. He was great. He was a great leadoff hitter. He's one of the best in the league. Like, he was so good, And I just got to put it down to just poor timing, Juan Soto this season was injured in the beginning or had COVID or something.
He had COVID, yeah.
Scherzer wasn't at the same. It might have just been everyone was affecting him. Like, they did not feel the same, And I know he's going to have a good year, or I feel it, because first of all, like, the year before was just one of his best. And second of all, the White Sox took a flyer on him. Like, when we heard he got signed, it was one of their biggest acquisitions. It was a top 3 acquisition by them. Lance Lynn, him, and Liam Hendricks. That was their season. You mentioned Adam Eden because he's a positive. Okay? So Adam Eden for me, my number 4.
That's awesome. He really reminded me a lot of Curtis Granderson in the 2015 playoffs. Both leadoff left-handed bats who provide that power and that speed on the base path. Both play great corner and center field. Eaton has played both in his career. He's been more of a corner outfield recently, but both very, very similar styles of play in their comparison to the years that they played. Anyway, which brings me to my final pick. And obviously, you mentioned him already before that you didn't count him, but I think number 1 for me as a Mets fan has to be Francisco Lindor. He's an MVP caliber player, for crying out loud, and he had an average OPS last year, which is still crazy to think. Like, for a bounce back year that he's due, it wasn't even the worst thing that could have possibly happened out of all things. Like, he could have torn his ACL or broke a foot or something crazy with all the crazy defensive plays he makes, because he was still excellent defensively last year, but the offense took a massive slump. If you look at his past 4.5 years prior, he's averaging over 30 home runs a year, about 33, 34 home runs a year, over 40 doubles, anywhere from 95 to 105 RBIs. He's good for 180 to 200 hits on a season. He's going to bat over 300, and he's going to steal 25 to 30 bases. That's ridiculous. He had 7 home runs. He played 52 or 53 games last year. His batting average was 240 something. He didn't have a lot of hits. And the only thing he really had going for him was that defense. His OPS was about 750, which is average in the MLB. So the fact that he still had an average OPS is still, okay, I guess. But I know spring training doesn't matter, but he's showing, he's starting to come back, I think, So I'm hoping he does. I think he's due for a bounce back year, change of scenery, obviously, as you mentioned, with a guy like Jose Altuve, but not him. It's the people around him they brought in that might have done something to affect him. I think it's going to be the same thing with Lindor, but I think that if there's any place for him to reestablish himself and prove that 4 years wasn't a fluke. I don't know how 4 years could really be a fluke. It's 4 years that you consistently are a top 10 player in the game. I think New York City is the best place for him to bounce back. Arguably the biggest market in all of sports, not even just baseball. And the people they have around him, the change in scenery with the ownership and everything, and he might get locked up long term. I think he's the clear number 1, at least in my opinion, for bounce back years.
Yeah. So my number 1 also, my team, it's got to be for me. It's Gary Sanchez.
Yeah, I was gonna take into account with him.
This dude, before 2020, was one of the best catchers in the league, man. If it wasn't for Real Muto and Grandal.
Okay, wait. Could we establish something? Could you at least confirm best hitters? Because he is not a great fielding catcher. He's got a cannon of an arm. Don't get me wrong. He might have the best arm.
I don't know if you've ever seen clips of him throwing off cutoff mans at second, but he is.
I'm saying he might have the best arm in the game. He might have the best arm out of any catcher in the game. But he is very bad in terms of blocking the pitches, and he gets crossed up with his pitchers and their signs and what pitches are coming. It seems like he tries.
Catchers were even though that's part of their job, they were always.
Look, his bat is
they
going to
were known for their hitting. The catchers. Buster Posey, one of the best. He hits. Yachty would hit.
He's also an excellent framer and fielder.
Sanchez, I know, but people don't talk about. But people don't talk about that. People talk about what they did. That's how they won championships, because they hit. It wasn't about their defense. Like obviously they were good defenders.
Okay, whatever. Nah, I'll get you. Make a point. You make a good point.
I always make points, man. Whether they're good or bad is debatable. Whether they're good or bad is debatable, but I always make points. Anyway, it's got to be Sanchez, man. This dude before just electric. You know, he was an all-star, raked like crazy. And this 2020, I don't know what happened. It was just really weird, you know? Like, I feel like he was injured half the time because that was a reason he wasn't doing well earlier at one point. But like, it must have been injuries or something like that, or he just there was not enough confidence. I don't know. Like a lot of players on this list I've said, I feel like a lot of them lost their confidence. Not just like they got worse. Yeah. They just lost their confidence and they just need to get it back. Which is why why all 5 of these guys I think are primed for to come back. You know, because just get your confidence back and you're good. And like you said, no better place to do it than New York, man. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
He's got a lot of teammates that can help him get back to form. You know, a lot of guys looking to make him feel better. And he's in the best sports market in the world. So he's got his chance as good as anyone.
Yeah. I just want to, before we move on to football, because this is going to wrap it up for the baseball segment, but I was considering Gary Sanchez over Max Scherzer. What made me pick Scherzer in the end was the fact that I know Sanchez has somewhat established himself. I think when he brings the fielding aspect up a little bit more, that's when he could really be considered among the greatest of the greatest in terms of the catchers in the game, because he's definitely one of the best catchers who's a hitter. But in terms of the
why he's not number one because of that. But yeah,
I have to say though, Max Scherzer has been completely established since 2012, 2013 when he won his first Cy Young. He hasn't skipped a beat ever since. And Sanchez has only been in the league for like 3 full seasons.
Well, I was only picking players that had amazing seasons the last 3 years, like the 3 year, like
I mean, by that logic, also you said though you didn't do it from teams who made the playoffs. The Yankees made the playoffs, Joey. So did the Brewers.
But I was saying I said independent of the team. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Because like if it was just him, like if he was their only like good player, they'd be screwed and they wouldn't make the playoffs.
Right.
That's why I picked Bryant, right? Because Bryant is one of their only like really good players still. So the fact that they made the playoffs was like strange, and like because of his bad year, they did not go farther than that.
Got you.
That's what I'm talking about. Anyway. And Garver is the same thing as Sanchez, have his team. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Okay, good. Because like I was trying to be very clear. Yeah. Anyway, those are my 5. Those are your 5. Are you ready to move on?
Of course I am. And this is where the meat and potatoes of the show is going to be.
All right, boys. So. We had the biggest week ever, I feel like, in free agency. I hope to God it's good next week, but not as good as this, because I got like over 20 names here. And frankly, I don't know where to start. How should I do this? Should I do this by position? Should I do this by teams? Like if a team made multiple things, like how do you want to do this? Because I want to pull this.
I think we got to stick with the team, but we got to save our team for last.
Yeah, we'll do ours last. But I just wanted to know how to do it. Okay. So let's talk so I'm not going to show all of them, because usually if it's just one move, I'm not going to show it. But Shaq Barrett re-signed with the Super Bowl champs Bucks. Thoughts on that, Josh, while I'm looking for the next thing?
Excellent. I mean, he was a very
and Godwin too.
Super Bowl. So that whole core is going to be around pretty much. Like even Brady, he's still signed for another year. But Shaq Barrett was a game changer in the Super Bowl and really took advantage of the fact that Kansas City was down 2 starting offensive linemen, and Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz that Super Bowl game. And it made his presence felt. He had a couple sacks, couple helpers, tackles, and passes that were forced and not completed.
Right. So those are the Super Bowl champs. Now we go to the Super Bowl losers. And while they did lose their 2 guys that they probably needed in the Super Bowl the most, they might have fixed it at least one area, and they might have strengthened another. So let me ask you what you think of this. The Chiefs signing Kyle Long and Joe Thuney. So what do you think about that? Joe Thuney, guard of the Patriots for many years. What do you think about this, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, like almost anyone you bring in from the New England Patriots is going to do you justice, because Bill Belichick was arguably the best coach of this past decade. Not even arguably, in my opinion. I think he was. Arguably would be a guy like Andy Reid or Mike Tomlin. But anyone who plays under Bill Belichick knows how to win, and anyone who's played under him at least for the last 5 years really knows how to win. Not just I have a little experience, because they were in the playoffs 2 years ago, and this year was just absolutely horrendous. but we know who they were missing, on the defensive end of things, and a change of scenery with the quarterback and everything. Anyone you bring in from the Patriots is going to be, definitely, at least I would have to assume, makes a positive impact, especially when you move from a winning from a winning environment in how New England was this past decade to how Kansas City is looking to be this coming decade. I mean, like, that's just the icing on the cake, really. You can't have a better switch almost.
Yeah, I mean, like, what more can you say? Like, I mean, they got rid of Fisher and Schwartz, so at least they got Thuney to replace to release Schwartz. But like, they need their guy back. They need their blindside guy. So I don't know if you heard of him because he's O lineman, but Andrew Villanueva or something from the Steelers. He's a free agent, so wondering if he could go after him. Maybe the Giants. We'll talk about the Giants later, but yeah, wondering if you have a thought about that or not.
Not much. I mean, I said if I think the Giants are going to go out and sign any offensive lineman, then they should go for either Mitchell Schwartz or Eric Fisher, because those are the prime products on the market.
We'll get into who we think we should sign after. So, but yeah, I want to bring that. Next team is the Patriots because you mentioned them, so I figured why not. And we already talked about Matthew Judon and Jonnu Smith, but they didn't stop there. No, sir. They got Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, and Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy's back after leaving Kyle Van Noy's back.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, Kyle Van Noy makes an excellent impact on the defense. He was great for Miami last year, but he's going to be great in New England. It's not a system he's unfamiliar with, so that's great. Hunter Henry, excellent tight end, definitely a great compliment to Jonnu Smith. I think Henry's going to be brought in as the number one guy, though, because he's more of a threat in the receiving game. And Jonnu Smith has really progressed well in the offense in terms of his pass catching and how often he gets in the end zone. But I think he's more of a blocking tight end than a receiving tight end. So they have an excellent tight end tandem. And I don't know if you mentioned it also, but Cam Newton was brought back.
Yeah.
A lot of confidence in that.
I think we mentioned that last week, but yeah.
I don't remember if we did, but if we didn't, I'm just going to readdress my thought there. I'm not expecting massive things from him, but I am expecting a better year in the passing side of things, because we know what he did offensively with his legs. Like, that was where the bulk of his offense came from. If he could pass the ball, and it helps getting him Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry as some targets, even though they're not wide receivers, they're not going to be used as often. Who knows? Maybe Hunter Henry will become like the next Rob Gronkowski to this team as a strictly receiving tight end, or primarily receiving tight end. That gives him a legitimate weapon now. So, yeah.
Yeah, So next team is the Vikings, and they made two moves. I'm trying to figure out if the names I wrote or they have more, but definitely these two come to mind. Number one, this one hurts, Dalvin Tomlinson, and the second one, your boy who you love, Patrick Peterson.
Yeah, Patrick Peterson, I love it. He's an excellent acquisition. He's definitely going to complement Harrison Smith in the secondary there. In terms of Dalvin Tomlinson, as a Giants fans, we miss him. But, you have to move on. They couldn't afford him in their cap situation. And, it's heartbreaking, to say the least, as a Giants fan. He was excellent. He really helped with Leonard Williams this past year. And Williams spoke about, how much he's going to miss the chemistry they built and the relationship they had in the clubhouse. But for the Vikings, they got themselves one hell of a player. They got themselves two hells of players. Like Patrick Peterson, we know, is an back who, like, I think he's a top five cornerback in the game, not even a question. Dalvin Tomlinson, he's going to do massive strides on that Vikings line whenever they're out on defense.
Yeah, what more can you say? Like, it's going to be huge. That defense is going to be transformative. I feel like that was their biggest problem last year. Like, the defense just wasn't doing it.
Yeah, they definitely had the offense. You had Cook, you had
Justin other Jefferson players that we'll get into that moved on, but yeah. Anyway, so this one, I hope we talk about this one a little bit longer, because this team, wow. So I feel like one of the worst things this team had was their kicker, and one of the best things they had was wide receiver. Who am I talking about? Well, guess what? I'm talking about the Arizona Cardinals, and they improved in both of them. What am I talking about? They signed Matt Prater, and they traded for Rodney Hudson and signed AJ Green. Okay? What do you think about this, Josh? Is this
Yeah,
a big
AJ
deal?
Green needs a change of scenery, in my opinion. I know that he hasn't really been excellent, like the all-star receiver they saw when he first came up his first 3 or 4 years. You also got to take into account Andy Dalton somehow just declined massively after those first 3 or 4 years, after he put up amazing numbers in his first few seasons. Kyler Murray, I think, is the perfect type of quarterback for AJ Green. He can go both deep, he can work in the slot, he can go short, he can run the slant, he could do everything. AJ Green, you know what his potential is like. If you get him a young quarterback who's mobile, because Andy Dalton was mobile, but not as mobile as Kyler Murray, and who has the accuracy and precision and the decision-making ability that Kyler Murray has, he's a tremendous athlete. And the first couple of weeks, first half of the season, he was in talks for the MVP. I think AJ Green needed a change of scenery. He's now, he was in a winning perspective the first couple of years in Cincinnati, and Arizona's slowly getting better. I know we just spoke about they lost Patrick Peterson on the defensive side of things. This is the perfect way to make up for it when you bring in a star or a star caliber potential player like AJ Green on the offensive side of things.
I mean, I just want to say, just like Cardinals, it seems like they're planning to be the NFL's retirement home. Like JJ Watt, Larry Fitzgerald, maybe DeAndre Hopkins, and now AJ Green.
Well, look, they still have it. Like Fitzgerald still has it, Watt still has it, Hopkins definitely still has it, and that AJ Green is very likely going to have a bounce back year. I'm not expecting him to go back to all-star receiver potential right away.
Free agency
slowly build it up.
Early 90s as well. It's become something that makes the NFL a 12-month per year obsession.
And just real quick, I don't know much about the guy they traded for, but in terms of Matt Prater, he's a good kicker, established, knows what it takes to win. He's been on some real nice teams in Denver, back with Peyton Manning, won a Super Bowl there. So he knows what it takes to win. I'm excited to see him in a Cardinals uniform. And also, he's not going to have to deal with the winds anymore. I know he was in Detroit and they have an indoor stadium, but he really thrived there. So same thing in Arizona.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, our next team is the Raiders. Now, what could the Raiders have done that was so noteworthy? Well, obviously, we talked about how they lost Nelson Aguilar, right? But they needed to replace him. So who'd they get? I don't know if you've heard of this guy. I've heard of him. Not bad. A lot of guys were confusing him with a guy that had the same first name as him. We'll get to that guy later, but his name is John Brown. I don't know if you heard of John Brown. Pretty speed receiver, is not bad, and great. He would be a solid addition to the offense that already has Henry Ruggs, Derek Carr.
Yeah, are we talking John Brown who was just on the Bills, or a new John Brown?
I'm pretty sure this is the John Brown on the Bills.
Oh, then I like it. I think that honestly, no disrespect to Nelson Aguilar, but I think Brown is better personally.
Really? Are you sure he wasn't on a better team?
No, I think even when he was in Arizona, he was an excellent receiver, and that Cardinals team took a couple of years to go from just to Super Bowl contenders. They never made the Super Bowl, but they always made it to at least the second round of the playoffs. He was a part of that. He was a big part of that.
True. Yeah, and the offense is getting better. Now they have all these dimensions in addition to Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller. And the other thing, which was probably one of the weakest points, was defense, man. They got Yannick Ngakoue, Yeah,
that's crazy. He's an excellent defensive lineman. We know what he could do. He was a part of that Jacksonville Jaguars defense back in the 2017 postseason. Huge piece. They lost in the AFC Championship game to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but man, oh man, 2018 playoffs, 2018, not 2017. But he was great there. And even when the Jaguars completely fell off the cliff the next year, he was still a very good part of that defense. And then moving over to Baltimore, we know what Baltimore did with their defense this past year. They were absolutely elite. He was part of the defensive line that completely steamrolled Derrick Henry. You would have thought it'd be the other way around after what he did to them the first time. Well, guess what? It wasn't. Now he's on the move to a team that needs to make massive strides in their defensive side of game, and Raiders are a team that could definitely use a player like him.
What more can you say? This is the only team that beat the Chiefs besides the Buccaneers. So, just think about that.
Legitimately at least, because the Chargers did, but we all know why they beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, but that was week 17. Come on. Like,
Yeah.
Mahomes was not playing, so, like, screw off, you know? Like, if you're really going to read into that, you got issues, okay? In my opinion. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out which move to talk about next, but now I'm running out of team moves and just separate moves. Should I just do separate from now on? Because I'm running out.
I guess if you want.
Unless I got a lot of QBs. You want to just do like a QB just like speed round?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so QB speed round. Let me pull it up for you. So
you don't have to keep pulling it up.
No, I know. I just want to say Famous Genius re-signed $5.5 million. Okay. Tyrod Taylor on the Texans. What does it say about Deshaun Watson? You'll tell me in a second. After getting rejected,
Deshaun Watson as of now is in a bit of hot water. So I mean, Tyrod Taylor is nowhere near as good as Deshaun Watson, but
yeah.
Whatever.
Bears getting Andy Dalton now after losing on the trade for Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett challenging Tua for the starting role. Sorry, I wanted to say all of them quickly. And Fitzmagic's in the NFC East. Okay, he's in the freaking Deadskins. All right, now I want all your thoughts. Go.
Okay. So in terms of Tyrod Taylor, serviceable quarterback, nothing special. Jacoby Brissett is not going to take you to the playoffs on his own, but he's a very good, tandem quarterback to have. I think that he's not a guy who should necessarily be starting all 16 games, but if you could have him start, 5, 6, 7 games a year, definitely. I think he's the guy. Like the less he plays, the better, but not like because he's bad, because he's never really been in that situation of being the full-time starter. So he's, obviously, like if he could condition himself a little bit better, that would help. But he's generally very good when he plays, a little bit less on the season. And like I said, that's not because he's bad and because like they shouldn't be playing him. That's because like he works better, I think, in like a 2-type quarterback role. It's not really a thing in the NFL, but if it becomes one for the organization he's with, then I think that's where he'll thrive. In terms of Andy Dalton to the Bears, yeah, I mean, like they're probably going with a double quarterback tandem. Like I just said, not many teams are going to be doing that. But this year, I think the Bears are going to do it because Nick Foles is just not great, if you ask me. He's definitely been declining recently. And I don't know what the hell the Bengals are going to do for the first couple of weeks because Joe Burrow is still dealing with a torn ACL. And, unless they want to go with Allen as their quarterback, then okay, be my guest. But yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to mention about the Dolphins. They also signed Will Fuller to a 1-year deal. Thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, Will Fuller is going to make a very big splash there. And I think that it's going to be huge. I mean, like they were a pretty solid team last year. They were a game away from making the playoffs. And they still, despite getting blown out by Buffalo, who had an explosive offense that year, still managed to put up over 25 points, I'm pretty sure, in that game. And Will Fuller had an outstanding year last year. Now, aside from the fact that, yes, he was taking steroids and was suspended for 6 games, I think that he's reset himself. He hasn't been known to be a cheater before or a dirty type player. He has had some injury issues in the past. But Miami, as usually, put out a video a year ago. He put one out called The Art of the Tank. Now he put one out called The Art of the Rebuild, how fast they put it together. They're looking to be a very, very solid team coming up, and they have a very bright future. Fuller adds that 1-year deal. I think that it could end up being longer than one in the long run. And finally, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, like Taylor Heineke wasn't absolutely horrendous last year in the playoff game. Like, if not for him, then they would have gotten blown out of the water. He made plays happen. With that being said, though, Fitzpatrick, good depth option to have. I don't know if they're going to roll with him as the starter because they don't have Alex Smith anymore. And they were confident enough to start him some games last year, and he wasn't bad, to say the least. It's not like a game-breaking type signing.
Also, about the Redskins, I forgot to mention, got Curtis Samuel, big free agent wide receiver in the market. Thoughts on that, Josh?
Yeah, it definitely helps. They are not a strong team offensively, at least in the receiving side of things. Logan Thomas is a solid tight end, and Terry McLaurin's a great wide receiver, but they really don't have much other than those two. And Antonio Gibson, but that's not on the receiving end of things. So Curtis Samuel, who I think is going to get a bigger role than he did in Carolina and never really got to show his full potential there, is going to have an opportunity to really break out as a player on the Washington football team.
Also, forgot to say about the Raiders, they got Kenny Drake, former stud.
Oh, right. That's true. Yeah, he's going to help. Josh Jacobs, he's always been either him as like a solid performer or he's been in a solid tandem. Last year, I mean, he was great. and so was Chase Edmonds. But like this coming year, Josh Jacobs, we know, is probably going to be the clear number one there. Kenyon Drake is a very good number two to have. I think that you're going to see a lot of dual running back looks with that offense, and they were a great offense last year. Defense was their problem, so Kenyon Drake only makes them better.
That's true. That's really true. I'm just checking really quickly to see if I missed anybody. Okay, I got a few left, and we're almost done. Okay, so I'm just gonna do the two teams I have left quickly before the Giants, and then we'll do some individual stuff before the Giants. Okay, so first is the Jets because I don't really care. Corey Davis, not really a number one guy. He was in a good offense, kind of overrated, but whatever.
Well, he's gonna be the number one guy on the Jets because they suck. But,
exactly. And Carl Lewis, I think his name is, or Lawson, something like that, from the Bengals, like to the Jets.
Yeah, defensive guy who came in.
Yeah, I'm just like, I never heard of this guy, but I guess he's good, right? I don't know. Never.
Yeah, I mean, they paid him a lot. So Corey Davis, good acquisition wherever he goes. I just feel bad that he's going to the Jets for his sake. And
yeah, I feel bad too. You know, fantasy's gonna be very interesting for him.
Yeah, and in terms of Lawson, yeah, I mean, like, they have a pretty okay offensive line, but defensively, they're just not great. They got rid of Leonard Williams way too early. Otherwise, they could have had the season that he just put up with the Giants. And, yeah, it just looks like I mean, think about it. Like, they could have had Jamal Adams, like, you know, controlling their secondary if they would have if he would have just waited, not if the Jets, because the Jets didn't want to give him away, but Adams was so, like, intensely demanding a trade out. If he would have waited a little bit, that defense would be a lot better. And they would be getting Lawson now. Like, think about that. So,
I mean, yeah, they have Adams, maybe Williams still, and you know, like, yeah. So that'd be very interesting.
You lose. That's that's just how it is.
That's the game, baby. And then the last team I want to talk about made two very interesting moves. They're both like relics. Tell me what you think if this means anything. Bills getting Kissin' Titties and Emmanuel Sanders. So what do you think?
Sanders is a great option, and I think that he might be able to take him over the hump into the Super Bowl. I don't know if they'll necessarily win one, but who knows? Yeah, nothing to be said about the other guy.
Yeah, good riddance.
Why? Just why?
No, just like why, right? Anyway, and then the last three are players you all heard about. We all know who they are. Three different types of players. So I want to give each of them a minute of praise. Okay. I told you this guy was cut, and you were like, why? Why would they cut this guy? Or at least why did they cut him and the other guy that plays the same position as him? I'm talking about Jared Cook, of course. Found a new home with the Chargers, who had a very interesting 2021 season. So what do you think about this? 1 year,
definitely helps to not having Hunter Henry anymore, and that's about as far as I'll go. You know what he's going to do, and especially with a more, you know, with a younger quarterback who is really looking to be a fabulous player down the road in Justin Herbert. I think he's a better blocker than Derrick Henry is. So that's going to help with the running game and in the pass protection game. And I mean, come on, we know he's a great receiver. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, what else can you say? Like,
he's played in that division before. He played for the Raiders prior, so he knows what it takes to win in that division.
Very, very true. Very true. I mean, yeah, what else could you say? It's pretty. I mean, we all thought. I thought like he was being underused in the Saints system, you know, because they had Thomas and they had Kamara, and I'm just like, how often are you like? You agree? Do you think he was underused or no?
I think he was underused and he was underappreciated. That's why they ended up cutting him.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. All right. Second one, we know this guy too well, and he's the kind of guy that like he had such a good time against us that we think he would be great if he played for us. I'm talking about, of course, from the new acquisition of the Carolina Panthers, Hassan Reddick. Any thoughts on this? Or do you think that game against us was just a fluke and we shouldn't have even tried to go after him? 1 year deal, $8 million.
He's a very good defensive lineman. So, yeah, going to definitely a force to be reckoned with. I mean, look, $8 million, very, very, you know, affordable contract, I think, especially for a guy like Reddick. And if he plays up to his potential or even higher, then he's going to be looking at a lot more than $8 million in the coming years.
Okay, yeah. I mean, what else could you say? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Arizona's defense was solid, but I mean, like, they brought in J.J. Watt, And if someone had to go that wasn't playing up to 100%, Redick would have been the guy. But definitely, maybe he needed to change the scenery. Who knows?
I mean, I guess that is the truth. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
So okay, so let me just, and then this is the last one. I want to give some context for this. So Steelers had a very, very interesting season. And they have 3 players, right? Andrew Villanueva, who has not been signed yet. Juju, who we thought for sure was out, actually stayed. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but he's not even the guy I care about. This is the biggest loss they've made. They lost Bud Dupree to the Titans. What do you think about that?
You know what? The Titans, Steelers had a great defense this past year, and the Titans' defense was better than years prior, but they took a step forward, and now they're adding Dupree. Sign me the heck up. He's gonna make a big
crap, man. Holy crap.
I know they just lost Corey Davis in free agency, but I mean AJ Brown's a stud. I know they also lost Jonnu Smith, but guess what? That's not going to kill them. Anthony Ferkser's a young player who can develop in this system, and they still have the bowling ball, Derrick Henry. So, yeah, you just until this team proves that they cannot win with this depleted team, and everyone thought it was depleted last year because they lost. Oh my gosh, who lost a big player the year before? But after the Chiefs game, they lost Logan Ryan. And people thought they weren't going to be anywhere close to it defensively because he was their top safety. And guess what? They won that division. So,
I mean, they got a great coach in Vrabel. So now you got a stud in Dupree. Now you're kind of running what to do with it. You're running out of excuses to not have a very, very commanding year, or at least a solid playoff run. Once you get people like this,
Yeah.
Your offense definitely wasn't the problem. If anything, it was your defense, which was okay.
The defense was still good.
I know, but it wasn't the elite,
Right.
This could put them over the top, in my opinion. Because we all know how good Pittsburgh was when they had Bud Dupree, Cameron Hayward, and TJ Watt anchoring that line. Just stud. So we'll see what happens, man. And then finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. The Giants have had an amazing offseason, okay? We'll take some time to see which offseason was better compared to last year, because last year, wow, James Bradbury, Blake Martinez, Logan Ryan. Enough said, right?
Yeah, but Joey, I just want to touch on something real quick.
Right.
All those players defensive oriented. None of those players on the offensive side of things.
Right, exactly. I think that was what people had as a problem, people thought wait a second, you're putting all your stuff into defense and nothing into offense, And
their defense worked.
It was great. But now you had a hole, right? And granted, they did pick an offensive player in the first round, but it wasn't O lineman, very important piece, but not technically offense. It's technically its own thing, So they decided to make 4 moves. Well, they made 5, but I don't know that. I don't know how to say the last guy's name. He's a linebacker, very long name. I don't know if you're talking about the guy from the Vikings. I don't know if you even know what I'm talking about, but
Asamoah, something like that.
No, it's a very
Pull it up after. We'll see.
I'll pull it up after, but I want to pull up the 5 moves that they made so far. And also just mention that since they lost Tomlinson, they re-signed Austin Johnson. So they technically have filled that hole, right? So anyway, so hello, Josh, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello? I can hear you. I'm waiting for you to pull it up.
No, because I heard a cut, so I thought you cut. Sorry.
Nah.
Yeah, because I want to pull up everything. So just give me one more second. I want to pull up the last thing. Okay. Okay. So this is what we did. We signed running back Devontae Booker to back up Saquon. Okay, solid backup guy. Maybe bad news because it might mean that Gallman's gone. We signed 3 wide receivers. We signed John Ross, who I think you've heard of.
You wanna actually click on the thing?
Yeah, sorry. I want to suspense. Dante Pettis. And we got Kenny fucking Golladay. We got Kenny fucking Golladay.
Okay. I tried to hold that. As soon as you let the F-bomb out, I just lost it. I was not expecting that. Oh, my gosh.
You understand? You need, like, suspense for this kind of thing. And we also got Kyle Rudolph. Holy fucking
Yeah,
shit,
that's huge.
Man. Oh, my God. We got Kenny Golladay. Okay? We got him. He's ours. He belongs to us. He's our property. No, he's not our property. But, like, he's playing for the Giants, man. He's playing for us. Josh, if you want to talk about the other moves, fine. But you definitely got to talk about Rudolph and Golladay in depth.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm going to save the best for last. And you just missed one also. Like, unless you were completely trying to, save this for last. They also re-signed Dalvin Tomlinson to a fat contract. So,
no.
Not Dalvin Tomlinson. I meant Leonard Williams.
I was going to say it.
My bad.
But I couldn't find a good article. But yeah, they signed him.
I literally just said
monster deal, avoided the franchise tag, which is great because as long as your guy's on the franchise tag, there's gonna be some bad blood. So honestly, there are some people I feel like are under the impression it's like a bad contract. But come on, man, he had a great season.
You gotta overpay sometimes, when the Rangers did with Panarin, when the Dodgers did with Trevor Bauer. When who just signed in the NBA? Someone just signed like a really ridiculous contract worth a crap ton of money. I already forgot, but
I'm trying to think which team would have done something.
Like it wasn't a very long-term contract, but it might have been an overpayment. Like
it probably was like it was an extension or a free agent.
No, it was free agent. Honestly.
It probably. I mean, I don't know. I'll look it up. But like,
honestly, I'm almost tempted. Honestly, it might have been like Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. Not Kyrie Irving.
That was last year.
Yeah, that was last year. I was thinking, but like Durant came off torn ACL, and you just offered him like $40 million a year. Like, think about that.
I know we're done talking about basketball. I know we're done talking about basketball. But I just want to say I'm so glad we didn't get Durant because the dude wanted us to like guarantee him $70 million or something like something.
He's already missed more than a season.
Ton of money, and he was super injured. Like, no way, man. I'm sorry, and we know
he's coming back nicely, but it's a little quick to give him the money.
But he's not worth that money. I'm sorry. He used to be, not anymore. He's a great player, but he's not the number 2 player in the league anymore. That's what he used to be before the injury, without a doubt.
Well, look, either way, the bottom line being that you have to overpay when it happens to be like this,
Same thing about Golladay, right? People are going to call it overpay.
And it's going to happen now with Kenny Golladay. I know, and Leonard Williams also. Like, Leonard Williams, what's he making? Like $20 million a year, something like that.
I'm gonna look up the contract, but it's
I think it's like 3 years,
but
for like
it's worth it, man.
Or something like that.
No, it's worth it, man. Let me look it up.
I think that's worth it because they know he has potential. They know what his potential is like, and he needed a change of scenery. And you know what?
Okay. The contract is a 3-year deal, $63 million, 45 guaranteed.
Yeah, there you have it. So
right. So that's I'm not good at math. 63 divided by 3. Look, that's like 21, I think, right? 21. Yeah. And then Golladay, I don't know if it's going to say here. Yeah, 4-year, 72, $40 million guaranteed.
Yeah, so $40 million guarantee. You know what? That's a lot better than Leonard Williams.
Right. But I think the average is better, is worse. Like, it's more, I think. Because what's 72 divided by 4? What is that? Actually,
I don't know, but it's like 18 a year, I think.
It's 8. So no, it's not worse. So yeah, that's better. It's much better.
Yeah. I mean, they have him a little bit longer, but still. So anyway, let's break this down real quick. Because we spent our time, just like dwelling on it. Now let's actually break it down. Dante Pettis was with the Giants last year, and he caught one of the couple touchdowns in the game against Dallas, which gave them a chance to still be able to win the division. So he is a re-signing free agent. He's been with this team before, but he's young, and I think he still has a lot of potential to show. I don't think he's going to be an all-star caliber receiver by any means, but he's definitely going to be a serviceable guy who can come off the bench and play a role every couple plays. He's not going to be one of their big 3 guys, and neither is John Ross, but John Ross is a speed demon, and we know what he can do. I think he's probably going to be used a lot in special teams. which is a bonus because the Giants don't really have very insanely strong special teams.
Yeah,
the last time
outside of like Peppers, but yeah,
incredible in special teams. I'm like, yeah, Jabril Peppers is a solid player, but you want him on defense. You don't want to risk him getting injured. So I mean, look, don't get me wrong.
Right,
I mean,
and Ross isn't going to be a huge receiver, so
yeah, he's not going to make or break this team. I mean, if he does, then that'll be amazing if he can, really take him over the hump. But I'm not expecting that to happen. I don't think anyone is. The big fish in the water is Kenny Golladay, a top 10 wide receiver in the game after the 2019-2020 season. And even though he only played 4 games this past season, they were 4 straight. He missed the first couple of weeks. He had a hip injury after. And it wasn't during the game, it was in workouts after. So he's got to be a little careful off the field. But in the games, you know what he's capable of. He was a star at the end of the 2019-2020 season. He was a lot of reasons. This is kind of a little unrelated, but like he's the reason most players won their fantasy league. If anyone had him and managed to make it to the finals, or even in the playoffs, like those last couple of weeks, he was an absolute monster. Like he carried teams. I know 3 friends personally of mine who were in 12-man leagues. All of them had him and were the last seed in the playoffs and all won their leagues because they had Kenny Golladay. It was that ridiculous. But all that aside, like he's a prime receiver. He's hitting the prime of his career. He's going to do great things. He's excellent on making the catch in really contested spaces. And he finally gives Daniel Jones a legitimate option. Like Sterling Shepard, yeah, and Darius Slayton's young, but like he's still growing. He can be. He had a good year in 2019-20. But Kenny Golladay, who's established, and I know that might be an overpayment because of the fact he's so injured the last couple of real months. I guess that's not too crazy, but he only played 4 games last year and didn't have anything to show because his team didn't make the playoffs. But think about that. Now he's had all this time to heal, and he's gonna be great coming in. He says he's excellent. He's excellent in terms of his health. He's ready to go. He's gonna keep himself healthy. He's gonna do everything he can to make this team win and just get better, even if they can't, go straight for the long run in the postseason. And it's definitely going to be helpful. And they'll be getting Saquon Barkley back in the middle of the year. I know that doesn't relate to Golladay, but that's just going to help things on the offensive side of things in general. So it's all great. Those are in terms of the 3 wide receivers. In terms of Kyle Rudolph, I mean, like we already know, this is a second former Vikings tight end the Giants have brought in because they brought in Caden Smith, and now they bring in Kyle Rudolph. And Rudolph is a great blocking tight end. But we also know what he could do on the offensive side of things. We know what Evan Ingram can. He's fast like anything. He's probably the fastest tight end in the league. The thing he's not, though, is a great pass catcher. Like, no offense. He's made some great catches, but he's way too inconsistent. Like, he'll make the hardest catches possible, and he'll drop the easiest lob passes you've seen wide open.
Yeah, that one against the Eagles
cost the Giants at least 2 or 3 games, and that eventually cost them the playoffs, had they known they were going to be in that spot at least. Kyle Rudolph is going to help. He's going to be a better blocker than Ingram. And he's going to be, I think, a bigger threat because he's more consistent at catching the ball than Ingram. He's also played at higher levels. He's been to the playoffs, and I don't just mean like first, second round. He's been deep into the playoffs. I'm talking like I don't think he's been in a Super Bowl in his career unless he was on those really early Vikings teams, like back when they were playing against the Saints in like the 2000 to 2010 decade. But like he's been to the NFC Championship games a couple times. Like he knows what it takes to win. So, and I think that he's going to be hungry around a young Giants team with a young quarterback and some young wide receivers and a very young running back and a very, very solid defense, as we know. So all of this is huge. And then the icing on the cake, I mean, Leonard Williams being another re-signing is, I think he's going to have another great year. I think he's going to have an excellent career as a Giant. I think he said he wanted to stay here. He loves the way the coaching staff pushes them. And same thing with Kenny Golladay. He said he came here because he loves the way Joe Judge coaches. He gets every bit of effort out of everyone. There's no slacking off. Like he said, I haven't even been on the field with him for a practice, and I could just tell already that he's going to make us work, and I'm excited for it because I want to be under that environment that's going to push us to do our best because he knows that with the pieces they have the opportunity and the ability to thrive. And I don't blame him, and I agree with him. And I'm very excited for the Giants season coming up. And this might not even be the last move they make. These might not be the last moves they make. Eric Fisher's still on the market. Mitchell Schwartz is on the market. I know they were both injured, but let's go get one of them and completely solidify that offensive line. They'll hopefully get Nate Soldier back and Will Hernandez. Like, either they should just like chop him off or like he'll revive his career. And I'm not too confident in door number 2. So honestly, just get rid of him and bring one of those 2 guys in. So like, yeah, like,
so I want to talk about
looking brighter than we thought.
Right. Okay, so here's my thoughts, man. Kyle Rudolph, wow. He has had some controversies from last season. They did argue that last play, that game-winning catch was a push-off. I kind of still think it was a little bit, just a little bit, because honestly, I feel bad for the Saints. You know what I mean? Definitely the first 2 games, they got screwed, man. With the Minneapolis Miracle,
absolutely, no question.
Minneapolis Miracle, and the penalty that everyone agrees should have happened. The third one, I could definitely see how it was a push-off, but I could also just see how it's a reach because it's just bad.
Yeah.
I could see how it's a reach and like it was just good and it just sucks.
Yeah, like look, he had his hands up going for the ball after, so you couldn't really tell.
It was a tough call. It was a tough call. The first 2, not so much. That was a tough call.
Hold on. The first one wasn't a call. The first one was just flat out horrendous defense. That had nothing to do with a call made.
I know. I'm saying bad luck.
The next 2 had calls involved in it.
Right. I meant just bad luck, like pure bad luck, like without a doubt, undisputed. This could have been disputed. This one. Anyway, just it's just interesting. He's never been the best tight end, but he's a pretty good tight end, man. He's pretty good. Like.
Yeah.
He wasn't the number 1 guy for Cousins because obviously you had Stephon Diggs and Thielen. But right after, like, he's the best third option they had, man. And, like, Ingram was great, technically. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler apparently, so I guess he was great, right? He got it over Bob from the Packers for some reason and Gronk from, like.
Oh, my gosh.
So he must have been good, right?
Go back to like, he was great. No, he's not. Ingram is not great. Yeah, he was a Pro Bowler over Robert Tonyan, and that's sad.
I don't get it.
NFL, like, and I'm sorry, Evan Ingram. Like, I like you because you're a Giant, but you in no way deserve to make the Pro Bowl last year. Like, even if your stats, like,
you're okay. I mean,
cost your team games, you cost them a trip to the playoffs. That's ultimately what it came to.
So, a quick question. Is he out? Is he out, or are we just going to platoon?
Honestly, I think part of this move, which I didn't mention, now that you're making me think of it, is maybe have a guy like Rudolph, who's not exactly very early into his career. He's been in the league for like 7 or 8 years at this point, to kind of teach Ingram what it is, because Ingram is still very young and he's very athletic, and we know what his potential is, but he just hasn't come close to hitting it, and he's really screwed up in big moments when they've needed him to come up big. So I think a guy like Rudolph not only can help by leading by example and doing what he's done in the past, but by that logic also mentoring the guys who are eventually going to be asked to help lead this organization, because Rudolph isn't going to be here for that much longer. But
yeah, while
they have him, I mean, like, get the most out of him in every way possible, whether it's playing, leading, mentoring, anything that he could do to help, I'm sure he will.
A great point you're making is exactly what I think, because last year, I'm just going to keep going back to last year. Logan Ryan, James Bradbury, Blake Martinez, man, all were in the league for a significant amount of time that they could be considered already good players and mentors for the young guys,
Exactly.
Bradbury for the other quarterback, Martinez for the other linebackers, and Ryan for the other safety, who's preppers, right? Or McKinney, like whoever, so like, it's a big deal. Now we're getting Rudolph, like a certified guy, veteran mentor to help Ingram possibly. And we got freaking Golladay, who maybe he could elevate Slayton's game more than you ever know. Like he can teach him things, And I'm happy. And you want to know the second thing is, it gives me hope for the future, because if you ever think about all the moves they made last year, all of them were connected to somebody they brought in. What am I talking about? Think about it. James Bradbury, drafted by the Panthers. Who was the GM of the Panthers first when he was drafted? Dave Gettleman, our GM now. Blake Martinez, we used to play for the Packers. Who was his linebackers coach formerly? Our defensive coordinator, Pat Graham. And Logan Ryan used to be a safety for who? The Patriots. Who used to work for the Patriots? Our coach, Joe Judge. I don't know where the Rudolph and Golladay connections go, but maybe their connections Maybe they can bring connections in. Maybe Golladay could bring, I don't know who's good on Detroit, but Rudolph can bring Thielen maybe. I don't know. Or I don't know. Like,
I don't know if that's going to happen just yet. But
imagine Thielen has like a rough patch with Minnesota and wants out. Imagine like he decides, I don't want to be here. You don't think he wouldn't even consider Rudolph? Giants because Rudolph's
you know
there?
what? Maybe, you might be right and you might be very wrong, but who knows? Again,
Hey, we predict, okay? We speculate. It's not, there's no proof. I just want to believe, okay? But so far, so good. And it addresses
even without the connections, these moves give us a lot of reason to be optimistic and to believe, Joey.
Right. For sure. Huge optimism. Now, this brings me to the last thing I want to talk about. Well, it's technically a two-part thing, but I want to bring up this part first. So I found a list of the 25 remaining free agents, and I want to know if you think we should pursue any of these guys. And you obviously said two of them, and I agree. So Mitchell Schwartz, yes, and right here, Fisher, yes. What do you think about getting Carlos Dunlap? Everyone said edge is definitely something we've needed to do. Or have we solved that problem already with Leonard Williams, and otherwise, right? Cornerback 2. This is the second part of this conversation. We've had 5 areas we've had to address this offseason, and we will or we already have. Wide receiver 1, cornerback 2, edge, maybe tight end because of the thing of Ingram pressure, and an O-lineman, particularly a guard, right? Those are the 5. We've already gotten Golladay. We've already gotten Rudolph. We've already gotten we've already resigned Williams, right? And we're in talks with Adoree Jackson. I don't know if you know who that is, from the Titans, to be our possible cornerback 2. If that happens, that means we have every single position filled except for the O-lineman. So what are you thinking, Josh? Do you think we should go for cornerback 2 O-lineman here from these players here that you can see? I'm going to just go down so you see if you like anyone else. Or do you think we should address it with our number 1 pick in the draft, like our first round pick in the draft at number 11? Because before you answer, sorry, I just want to point out, before we did all these moves, people were saying we should get one of the 3 receivers, Chase, Smith, Waddle at 11. And before we got Rudolph, people said we should get Kyle Pitts. And people are all saying maybe get Greg Russo, a great edge guy, but everyone's saying maybe that's a reach at 11, so trade back. So now that relieves us to cornerback 2. Patrick Surtain from Alabama is a good pick. And there's this guy, I forgot his name, great O-lineman. I'll look it up later. That's who people are thinking is our best choice, considering we addressed everything else. Or do you think we should double down on all of the positions we already covered? What do you think, Josh, in the draft or free agency that you see here?
So I've got 3 really quick points because I do want to try to move this along.
Sorry.
It's kind of like 3 ways.
Yeah.
I think that the best bet is to get an O-lineman from the free agents here, because Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher are about as prime opportunities you're going to get to make a splash, who have been deep into the playoffs and have won a title under great coaching in young player environments, similar to the way this Giants is. They're a young team. Jones is young. Barkley's young. Galladay's still young. Rudolph is really, he's not super old, but, obviously he's not like young, but he's not like super old. So Slayton is young. Andrew Thomas is young. And then on the defensive side of things, James Bradbury, Logan Ryan, Blake Martinez is a veteran at this point, but as we mentioned, still young. Not Dalvin Thompson, keep saying Leonard Williams, still fairly young. So they're going to have those young, they're going to have to come up and, the defense did an excellent job. And obviously the offense is going to be looking to take a big step forward with the acquisition of Golladay and Kyle Rudolph. And if John Ross and Dante Pettis, or the re-signing of Pettis, now if they can make a splash, then great. And if Daniel Jones could take that next step and be more of I don't want to say more of a pocket passer, because I think you still need to incorporate him into the run game, because they can. He's effective. But, if he could look to throw a little bit more, then that would be huge. And part of that obviously has to come with getting him a little bit better protection. And obviously Nate Soldier was out last year. Hopefully he'll be able to come back this year. I think Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher are the 2 guys they need to go after here. I don't think that they should address O-line through the draft. I think that they should use the D-line to be addressed in the draft.
You're saying an edge rusher or anywhere on the D-line?
Any way that they can improve that defense, obviously by about as a significant margin as you can in the draft, then that's the route they should go for. They tried to do it on the O-line side of things with Andrew Thomas last year. And if they don't do that here, I don't think that you're going to be seen, because I don't think the defense needs as much attention right now as the offense does. So the other thing, though, is I don't know how much the Giants are willing to spend or have left to spend. And if they don't have enough that they'd be able to afford a guy like Mitchell Schwartz or Eric Fisher, who are, in my opinion, the two best guys out there that they can go in and get to improve that offensive line about as best as you possibly can, that's when I'd say you should use your draft pick. They have the 11th overall pick, so they're still in a good spot to draft an O-lineman. And if not, and they feel comfortable with the defense and they want to get a free agent for the offensive line, that's when I'd say go after another position player you already have, whether you want a wide receiver for the future of this team, because if that's available, like the Giants passed on CeeDee Lamb last year, think about that. That's crazy. Like, they could have had him and they didn't. And I know Andrew Thomas is, he got better as the season.
No, but
CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb, for crying out. He's a game-breaking type. He's going to be a game-breaking type receiver, if you ask me. That's what I think.
All right, first of all, I don't think that's fair because a lot of people slept on CeeDee Lamb. He was drafted super late. That Dallas got him, which really pisses me off.
I mean, yeah, that pissed me off.
And
but
for a fact we needed to get an O-lineman first. For a fact we needed to get one.
Right, that's true. So look, I know I'm just saying what they could have had now. I'm saying, looking back at it, I wasn't sleeping on CeeDee Lamb last year. I thought he was going to be the first wide receiver taken. So, and I was shocked he wasn't a top 10 pick.
Come on, Ruggs was really good. So you can't be surprised.
He's the fastest guy they had. So but either way, the ability to break tackles, Lamb is still he's not as fast as Ruggs, but he's insanely fast, and he's a tackle breaking machine. Whatever. We're dwelling on last year's draft too much. But anyway,
I'm talking about this year's draft. Who are they taking? What kind of player are they getting?
I'd like to see them take a wide receiver. I think that they should address
even though they got Golladay, you want them
even though they've got Golladay, because Shepard is running out of time on his rookie contract. And yeah, you'll have Slayton around, but Shepard's still been a pretty big piece to this offense whenever he's been able to stay healthy and commit. And do they really want to tend to John Ross and Dante Pettis? That's my question. They're both young, but Shepard's young too, and Shepard's shown a lot more than both those guys combined. So
yeah, but don't forget they also have tight ends, Rudolph and Ingram, and they also have running backs.
True, but I'm saying you want a good three-way option. Think about it. All the great offenses, right? They all have 3-star wide receivers like the Chiefs. You've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Sammy Watkins, you've got Mecole Hardman, who's blossoming. He's a speed demon who's also blossoming. Obviously Travis Kelce's huge, but he's not a wide receiver. If you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and not even if you're not even going to talk about this year and the years prior, you had Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, right? You had Juju Smith-Schuster among one of those years.
Martavis Bryant.
No, not Martavis Bryant, but they had Marcus Wheaton, who was excellent. You got Sammy Coates, who was great. For the Cardinals,
I'm thinking about
D-Hop, you've got Christian Kirk now. I know they weren't a great team, but they were a heck of a great offense. The Rams, you got Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, for crying out loud. And Josh Reynolds, who's only getting better, and he's still young, and he's getting much better as the years go. The Packers had Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, Randall Cobb, and Greg Jennings. Give me a break. If the Giants really want to make
you're forgetting the best one, man, from 2013 Broncos, man. Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, and Emmanuel Sanders.
Thank you. You're
setting offense.
My point. I want you to
I'm saying you forgot one. So that's the best one in my opinion, because that was
you're proving my point though. And by
I understand. I get it. I kind of understand. But the only way I'm okay with them taking a wide receiver is if they at least some way address the
I'm saying if they address
the O-line. The O-line has to be addressed. Because
the defense is their strongest asset right now to me.
Right. So I think the O-line needs to be addressed. You need to get one guy. It doesn't have to be Schwartz or Fisher. Maybe get Villanueva. Get somebody or trade for. I don't know. Just you have to address it. Maybe in a later round in the draft, but you have to get someone. Because and another reason why I'm okay with your wide receiver thing is if you remember last year, they had 7 picks. They did not spend one on a wide receiver, and a lot of people were upset about that. Even though they very much could have. Although, let's be honest, some of their picks were great, especially the last pick of the whole draft. Mr. Relevance, Ty Crowder, already had a sack, interception, touchdown. So, not all the picks were bad, but they could have used a wide receiver in one of those rounds. I think one of those picks was Matt Pert, who's kind of like okay, but is kind of the reason why we're having this conversation about fixing the line, because between him and Soldier, someone's gonna give, and we gotta get one more guy to who's a sure thing to fix that, or at least can help a lot. Because I like what Nick Gates is doing, and I like Shane Lemieux a lot, but losing Zeitler, it hurt us a lot. So between that and not knowing what Soldier's gonna be and if Pert's gonna improve, we need at least one more O-lineman in order to go to be like a playoff team, like a real playoff team, not just like a fluke NFC East playoff team, like a real one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm okay with the wide receiver thing as long as they address the O-line. Edge and CB2 I can let go because the defense was already good. It was already really, really good. But you got to fix the O-line because it was okay. It wasn't as garbage as it was in the past, but it was still pretty bad. So
yeah, and if they get Soldier back, then that also gives them less of a blow. So
yeah, well, depending what Soldier we get back, but yeah,
right, that's true.
Yeah. So
anyway,
yeah. Well, I said it, man. We were gonna talk a ton about football, and I was right. So I'm ready to move on.
We did, and this was the most exciting one we've done all year. I know we've done predictions for playoffs and very hyped up matchups, but this is where it's at. The heart of free agency. And to think like the heart of free agency is right at the beginning. That's generally where it is. Normally, you don't always see those big name players right off the board in every single sport. Football is the only sport you really see it in.
Because players want to set the tone for the market.
Yeah, like it took a while in basketball for both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant to decide they were going to go to the Nets or the Knicks or the Hornets, because they also had a spot to sign a max contract. In baseball, it took a while for Bryce Harper and Manny Machado to decide where they were going. They were, looking at, teams similar to Durant and Irving. They were like, okay, the Knicks and Nets are like our two options. And Bryce Harper was like, okay, the Phillies and Nationals are my two options. And Machado was like, okay, the Yankees and Padres were my two options. And he ended up being a Padre. And Harper ended up being a Philly. And in hockey, most notably and most recently, Artemi Panarin was like, okay, do I go to Columbus? Do I go to New York Islanders? Do I go to the Rangers?
Islanders are offering $1 million more than the Rangers? Nah, F off.
Yeah.
Just
Columbus was offering the same price as the Islanders also.
I want to show
like he had success there, so he knew that it was only going to stay. He knew it wasn't going to get any worse. But he also knew something that certain personnel changed. So I guess that's a little different. But the bottom line is they all weren't right off the board in like the first week and a half or 2 weeks of free agency. While the NFL season has been over for about a month already, a month and a half, free agency doesn't start until, about 2 months after the offseason begins, because that's when, like players get a little more downtime, and especially all the guys who are in the playoffs and everything. So to see it happening like this early in action, like that's awesome, So yeah, thank you NFL free agency, because it's been awesome.
Big one. There's going to be some good signings still left. Obviously, we're going to talk about Schwartz, Fisher, like those are obviously. It's not going to be the same as this week. This week was phenomenal, man. A lot of great news, especially from the Giants fans. Thank you, Dave Gettleman. I hope this is not a fluke. I don't think it is, especially based on what you did last year's free agency. I hope you stay, because I think you're doing mostly a good job, mostly. But anyway, I'm ready. I've talked a ton about football. I'm getting kind of sick of it. So let's get into hockey. That's how we always end the show. And I got 3 pieces of news for you. Well, maybe 4 or 5, but so I'm not going to pull it up because, I just I get tired of pulling everything up, but I just want to mention, we talked about how amazing USA hockey was this past year, and Canada in the World Juniors, right? We talked about, I think, tell me if you disagree, Josh, but I think if you said the best offensive and defensive player of USA and Canada, it would be Cam York and Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale and Dylan Cousins,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right, exactly. Now, how crazy is it that the best? I know it's debatable.
Some part of me wants to say for Team USA it might be Jake Sanderson, but he's not as ready to come up to the.
No, it's Cam York. Come on, we're hoping this guy stays in the minors. It's Cam York. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll go with York. I have to respect it. I'll go.
Anyway, but that's irrelevant because that wasn't the point I was trying to make. The point I was trying to make is the Ducks have the best offensive USA player and the best defensive Canadian player, and they both scored their goals last week. I don't know if you saw it. They both got their first goals on the board of the year. So what do you think, man? Is this a future kind of pass? Because that bright future, man, you got 2 phenomenal players on your team now. Like they're called up
I
now.
think they are, and similar to how the Ducks were able to anchor their, the back end of their team and their defense back through the early 2010s, or honestly even the mid 2000s when they won the Cup against the Ottawa Senators later, in the later half of that decade, but still around midway through, and then all the way through like 2017, 18, like they were a guaranteed playoff team. And now I know a lot of players have come and gone. Obviously, you had Scott Niedermayer on the back end of his career, and you had Bobby Ryan, like just beginning his career. You had Teemu Selanne in that mix eventually. So to kind of see where it's both, Niedermayer's, let's start actually with the younger players. So who do they bring in? I think the most obvious one has to be Ryan Getzlaf. He's still the captain now, and he's older now. But back then, it was Ryan Getzlaf, and it was Corey Perry.
Ryan Kessler eventually.
Ryan Kessler eventually joined the mix. Exactly. And who was their defense? There wasn't really a set solidified defenseman who came in.
Niedermayer.
No, but he kind of left after a couple years because he had been playing since the 1900s.
Well, later on,
who from the
later on, it was Fowler and Fedor and stuff like that.
Yeah, so those are the guys who you look to, but not as early on. So I guess that defense is more of a platoon, a two. Yeah,
now they have Shattenkirk in addition.
Right. Exactly. So you had Niedermayer, which eventually became Cam Fowler and Hampus Lindholm, who's now anchoring that defense still with Fowler, and both are right in the prime of their career and are doing good things. And you mentioned they just brought in Shattenkirk, and now they're going to hand it off because while they're both in the prime of their career, they're on the secondary half of that, obviously. They're both not the youngest defensemen. While they may be in their prime, they're both in their low to mid-30s. And Drysdale is a teenager coming up to start and anchoring this Ducks defense. And not only is he a lockdown defenseman, but he's a terrific offensive threat from the point. We both know. We both saw it in the World Juniors, and we're seeing it in less than his first full week in the NHL. That's ridiculous. And both him and Zegras, that's the thing. Zegras is going to be leading this offense for numerous years to come. I'll be shocked if he doesn't, because this Ducks team got off to an ugly start. And while they're not exactly winning games, you're starting to see them play a lot better with these two guys. So that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, we know they're not the best team, but oh my God, they have one of the brightest futures in the NHL. Oh my God, on both sides, they have a guy that's going to take them over to the top in the future. Maybe Zegras is a stud, Drysdale is just awesome. So just looking forward, man. Looking forward.
They're building around it. And look, who knows what kind of free agent signings they might make over there. It's kind of like the Rangers. The Rangers didn't have any ridiculously high overall picks. They didn't have the first or second overall pick right away. You had the 9th in Kravtsov, and you had the 22nd when Miller. Obviously, they're expecting big things, and he's lived up. But he wasn't a super high top 10 draft pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but then the Rangers went out and signed Panarin, and then they got another draft pick. Same thing. The Ducks might be able to sign Ovechkin for all we know. He's gonna be a free agent soon.
That's not gonna
Capitals don't want to pay him. Listen, a lot of players have gone to the Ducks on the back ends of their career because they know how that future's looking, and to mentor those players to see what they can do to help them win now. Ovechkin's slowing down. I know that it doesn't look like it, but he's gonna be slowing down. His fatigue, his stamina, all those things. And to see a young skater like Trevor Zegras, and even Rickard Rakell, if he's going to stay in Anaheim, I hope he does, because I like him in an Anaheim lineup. He's been a real good fit to that team. He's gotten better as the years have gone along significantly. And maybe you might see a guy like, honestly, Matthias Ekholm. He's a big trade acquisition for a lot of teams, and the Ducks might want to bring him in to try and help out with Jamie Drysdale, give him a second partner, because he's not playing with Shattenkirk right now. They're having Shattenkirk play with some of the younger guys. Ekholm would be a perfect fit in that lineup.
I get where you come from, Josh, but the Ducks are nowhere near a playoff team, in my opinion.
I know, but I'm saying
I don't know why anyone would make that.
Next year, they're going to have a lot of cap space because
I know.
They're not really.
Ekholm is one of the best contracts the Predators have. It's actually a steal of a contract. If you look at it, him and Ellis are on steals of contracts. So, yeah, that's why I think they have one of the best defenses in the NHL. Not the best team, but one of the best defenses technically. Because, wow, they pay very little to their guys except for Yossi. It's kind of nuts.
And Forsberg. But I mean, like that's going to change also. So
No, I'm saying on the defense.
yeah. Okay. Well,
No,
either
they pay a shit ton on offense. Do Shane Johansson?
Yeah, let's okay. I don't want to because they're way too underwhelming this season for us to talk about how good they are. Like in
I
terms
wasn't planning on talking about him, but I do
yeah, I know.
plan on
I was
talking
saying,
about.
like, with the
I do
contract,
plan on talking about your
they're
favorite
really
team.
underwhelming.
I do plan on talking about your favorite team, the Avalanche. They just traded for Buffalo goalie Jonas Johansson. Any thoughts on this, Josh? If you even
Nope, because I really don't know.
Do you even know who that is?
Yes, I do know who he is. And it's kind of annoying because I was hoping he'd get to play against the Rangers tonight because Allmark is actually showing promise, and so is Carter Hutton. So,
Yeah.
There goes that dream.
Well, guess what? I also bring it up because Buffalo sucked so much that they lost 12 games in a row and fired their coach.
I like this was gonna happen. I mean, like, no one expected it to happen. I didn't.
You didn't expect it to happen? You didn't
No. I'm saying coming into this season, no one expected Buffalo to be as bad as they have been.
Oh, I thought you meant he got fired. I'm like, okay.
Oh, no. I was fully expecting him to get fired when they lost 12 games in a row. Once they lost 10 games in a row is when I thought it was going to happen, because it wasn't just like they were losing games. Like, they were getting dominated. It really wasn't close in a lot of those games. And I know most of them came against the Islanders. The Islanders, I think, have almost played all their matchups against Buffalo. They might have like one left at best, maybe two. But like, the Islanders are a good team, but they're not a good team at the same time. You know what I mean? They're an excellent defensive team and they're well coached, but they really don't have an easy time scoring. They really have a tough time scoring, even against the crappiest of teams. And they made Buffalo look like target practice. Like, that's basically what happened. So that's to say the least. And like, I'm not saying Ralph Kruger should be coaching his team well enough to beat arguably a top 3 team in that division, but they definitely shouldn't be getting blown out 6-1 each game. You know what I mean? Like, especially with a goalie like Linus Ullmark, who's young and might not have as much experience, but man, oh man, we've seen what the guy can do when he gets pinned against the wall. And he's held his team in games so many times, you know, like, it's not really an excuse, but if a team had to use an excuse, it would be the COVID, you know, for the whole team. Like, if it's one player, fine, I get that. When it takes a toll on an entire team, like, you know, like, there's only a certain amount of time you have. And like, now they're like, if they haven't gotten back within like, you know, 2 weeks, you know, if not more, because you don't play 12 games in just 2 weeks, you know, it's spread out a lot more, then I don't know when they're getting back. You know what I mean? It's been nearly a month. It's been almost 3.5 weeks. It's crazy. And who knows, maybe a coaching change will do wonders for them. I don't think it will. Yeah, like that's all there really is to it. That and the fact that Hall sucks this year, Skinner sucks this year, and Eichel is injured.
Okay, so, for the record, I know you're saying you're surprised, but I don't know if I'm surprised about that, but I'm definitely surprised, I'm going to keep saying it, that Taylor Hall said he wants to win and sign with this team. It didn't make sense then. It doesn't make sense now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. He should
have just went to Colorado like everyone thought he was going to.
I'm sure went to Colorado. Wishing he took that $4 million deal instead of $8 million to win a draft lottery instead. Utri has said it numerous times over and over again. Taylor Hall finally might have a place to go and win something else other than draft lotteries. Nope, that's going to stay the same.
Isn't that crazy, by the way, that literally like
Arizona, and Edmonton, and now Buffalo, like, you know, and New Jersey. He won 2 in New Jersey. Like, think about it.
He's the lottery king. Like, you know what? Actually, maybe that's why this happened. Maybe he signed thinking he was going to win, but really it just happened because the hockey gods decided that Buffalo has to win the lottery. You know, like, maybe they're going to win now because Taylor Hall's on the team. Like, I can't hear you.
Yo, I can only imagine what's going to happen. Buffalo's going to win the draft lottery. He's going to come back, think they'll actually get better, and then they're going to win another draft lottery. And then he's just going to be like, nope, I've seen too much of this. I should finally go to a team. But then what's going to happen is, like, that actual good team. Like, imagine if he goes to the Avalanche just completely suck. Like, that would really
That would be impossible.
They're an up-and-coming dynasty. Like, you could just feel it. The Avalanche are about to be a dynasty. You could just feel it.
Like, no, I don't think that's possible.
Crazy.
Went to the Avalanche, the Lightning, the Knights. There's no way they'd suck. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You're telling me the reigning
with Taylor
champs And what I think is the best team in the league really is the Golden Knights. You're telling me that they would suck if they had Taylor Hall. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think they would, but I think that eventually reality would set in.
What? Oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to lose now because we got Taylor Hall. No.
Look, any way you slice it, like think about it. As soon as he leaves a team, they start to do somewhat well. Like he left
Arizona
left Edmonton and they became a playoff team. He left New Jersey and they were in a complete garbage hole when he was there. I know he had his.
Huh? I didn't hear you. Oh.
And they missed the playoffs, then they played with him and they missed the playoffs. Same thing in Arizona. Arizona's doing better this year than they did last year. Like that division is just ridiculous because you have Colorado with the Vegas Golden Knights, the Wild who are out on an absolute tear, and the St. Louis Blues and the Los Angeles Kings there now. Like, just think about it. That's all I'm saying. And now, like, I'm sure when he leaves Buffalo, they'll actually like back it to par.
Right. Okay. And then,
actually, no. I don't think that's ever going to happen because Buffalo sucks. But like,
yeah,
they should seriously blow everything.
Playoff drought ever. It's like 12 years, or will be 12 years at the end of this year. 12 years without a playoff berth. So yeah, it's pretty sad.
It's crazy.
Anyway,
but like,
by the way,
as a Rangers fan because Rangers that first time.
No. But I just want to point out, Ewing Tree did a video on this. He did a Buffalo. It's funny.
Yeah, I did.
He did a Bill Sabres video like 3 years ago, but it was about how they were both mediocre, right?
Yeah,
and this
now
one,
it's how
one went up and one went down instead of being both in the middle. So I thought, like, wow. I did not think he could make the same kind of video so different, and he did it, and it was glorious. And it's just funny because he said that they're both owned by the same guy, and then I got really upset because I'm like, oh, shoot, I know where this is going, you know? And then he had to mention James Dolan.
But you know, it's really true because he does nothing. Like, I talk about this. I take a sports.
Oh, wait, this is what I always say when people say sell the team to the Knicks. I always say, no, you're wrong, because if he just did the way he did it with the Rangers, they would be fine. And that's what he's doing this year, in my opinion. I think he's doing that.
I take a sports analytics class, and my professor has connections to James Dolan. He's like gotten guys to speak in the past, and his wording is he doesn't do anything with the Rangers. He leaves the Rangers alone. He lets Jeff Gordon and JD and the coaching staff do their job. He doesn't let a single thing happen. This is like the first time he's been even remotely quiet around the Knicks. And look, Thibodeau's managing a team that could potentially make the playoffs. You know, they brought in Derrick Rose. He's revived his career a little bit. You know, like he signed with the Pistons thinking that, you know, he could do something like Taylor Hall. He'd be on a bad team, have a good role, and get a fat payday after. Like, no, he's in a winning, not a winning environment necessarily, but
500 franchise, over 500. Yeah. So
an environment that's used to more winning than Detroit's doing this year at the very least. So, I mean, there you have it.
It's a very low bar, but okay. Anyway, but yeah, the point is, don't always blame the owner because it's not that simple. Okay, a lot of moving parts. And before we get into our last topic, which I know we're all very excited to talk about, I just want to point out something that made me happy, especially because it was not against us. Ovi just passed all-time goal list. It passed former Ranger Philip Zito for 6 most goals ever scored in NHL history. All right, he scored 718, and I think I don't know if it's gonna say here, but he's only like 100.
It was against Buffalo, low key. Oh
yeah,
wow.
that was the funny part, and he only has like 180 goals to beat Gretzky. 1, do you think he will do it? And 2, do you really think he has the time? I guess the same question, but yeah, because he scores like 50 goals a year, and it's only 56 games this year. So like,
what is he? 34, 35?
34. So it's coming close.
I'm quite confident he'll be playing till like he's at least 40. So
right, because he's 6, right? So, but if you look at these are the guys ahead of him besides Gretzky, and a lot of them are actually kind of within his reach. He's at 718, right?
Okay. He might even be more now because he scored 2 against the Rangers, so he's at like 720 something.
Right. So like, yeah, he's like very close to beating Dion, Brett Hull, Yager's. Somewhat like if in a whole season, yeah, possible. Gordie Howe's the only one that's going to be a little hard, but I don't know, maybe. But he could probably also do Gordie Howe. Gretzky's going to be the craziest one if he pulls that off. Oh my god, because he scores like 50 goals a season at least, and that's in an 80-game season, and he doesn't even have an 80-game season this year, and he's already 34. So it's going to be like one of the toughest things, especially if you actually think he's going to leave the Capitals. But I don't think he will. Okay, he owes his life to that city, man. That city made him great. He made that city great. True. They're like together. Their feet are entwined.
It wouldn't surprise me if, say, like, you know, something like that. It doesn't have to be Ovi. I'm just saying, like, any big name. Like, he's just the one that comes to mind because he's.
I know what you're saying, but if any of that ever happened, it'd be like earth-shattering news.
Right? No.
Kane, Taves, Keith, Crosby, Ovechkin, Kopitar, Doughty. Like any of those guys, I would have just lost I would lose my mind. I would lose my mind because those guys.
I mean, I wouldn't, because that in those cases, like 3 of those like 10 guys you just listed are out of the East Division, and the Rangers don't have to deal with them. So like, I wouldn't care as much.
Yeah, but what if they go to another East Division team? Like, what if Crosby and Ovi joined forces?
That'd be ridiculous.
I would be so mad and scared, and I would just run away. I would just like, no, I don't want to deal with that. That'd be the worst power play ever. That'd be like so unfair. Malkin, Gensel, Malkin, Crosby, Ovi, like wow, just and Letang. Like that would be not fair.
Yeah, I mean, like screw it. Or imagine like Crosby, Kuznetsov, Ovi, Backstrom, and Karlsson, and Vrana, or like Wilson and Oshie. Like holy crap. Okay,
no, they're a great top 6, man. I just like, but let's just be honest. It's the Ovi show, man. He just scores from that right circle every time. Like. Every time, you know?
Yeah.
So I just like, yeah. So good luck, Ovi. If you like, he's definitely one of the greatest players of all time, but is he really like the best of the best? Because like his defensive game is just not on the same level as other players,
yeah,
you know?
I know. But in terms of
he's a pure scorer, and also he doesn't pass as much, you know, as other guys would, like Crosby and Gretzky.
I kind of want him to do it though. Like, I can't.
But it's not gonna make him the GOAT, right? It's not gonna make him the GOAT if he does that, right?
Like it's not by any means, because most of these are goals. They'll make him the greatest goal scorer of all time. Definitely not the greatest.
Right, but not the greatest player because the assists doesn't have the assists and the.
If Wayne Gretzky only had his assists,
he'd still lead the most points ever. That's why I know he's the best.
The whole time, it'd be ridiculous. Like that's how crazy it is. What did he have?
I know he's the best player ever because of that fact.
How many points did he have? Like how many? What does he have? Like over 3,000 lives, over 2,000 lifetime.
Let me. I don't want to besmirch the great one's name, so I'm just gonna look it up.
It's kind of crazy how like he didn't hit 900. Like you would be saying, it's like crazy how
2,857 points. Okay, 2,857 points. The only player to have more than 2,000 points, right, is Messier. And he played in like 270 more games than Gretzky. Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just think about that.
So yeah, Gretzky owns it. Okay, yeah. Bottom line, Gretzky, greatest player of all time. Even if Ovi beats his goal, even he beats the goal scored record. Let's move on to the final thing. Good luck, Ovi. If you do it, then like I'll applaud you. But like I kind of hope you don't, because it means a good amount of those goals are probably coming against the Rangers. And I
know what I'm saying. Like break the statistics, break your milestones against every other team.
Doing anything against the Rangers, I'm totally down with that. Just like
obviously it could be over time, but I don't want him to pass each player like Brett Hull, Yager against us. I don't want that to happen because that will kill me. So don't do that. But break it anyway. Just not against us. Get away from us, okay? Because we own your team. Speaking of us owning your team. Before we get into, I don't know if you want to go in order of games or you want to just say the best games. What do you want to do?
No, we got to go in order.
Fine, we're going in order. Holy shit. All right, first let's set the stage because everything needs a background, okay? Yeah. Here's the situation. All right, we have played, before this game, we had lost a heartbreaker to the Flyers. Like a dumb move by Keith Kincaid. It was like he wasn't even trying. I was like so mad, you know? I was just like, what the hell's going on, right? And like the only thing that makes us more optimistic about the next game against the Flyers is that Georgie's playing. Although, you know, still.
He's been shaky recently.
You know, and then the worst thing happens. We get all these COVID protocols. Now Quinn's out and Allaire and Martin, they're all out. So our freaking AHL coach is coming in. I'm just like, we're screwed, you know? Like we're screwed. Like what are we gonna do? You know? This game's going to be tough.
Flip the script.
But let me just understand that this did not happen. We scored 9 freaking goals against you, Flyers. Suck it.
Let's understand the same thing. Notice who it's against, the Philadelphia Flyers. And the Rangers AHL coach, Chris, I always forget how to pronounce that last name. Was it Knobloch?
No, I pronounce it like this. I don't know if it's the same. I just like it like Nullback.
However it is the former Flyers assistant coach. So he knows
and we beat our former coach, AV.
Yes. And he's the one I actually have sympathy for because I feel
Yeah,
bad.
I want to pull this article just so you understand how he felt. He said it was true. He was truly embarrassed by this loss. So I just want to point that out.
I mean, like, look, I don't know if it's because they gave up 9 or if they lost to the Rangers, who are a subpar team to them on paper, or if it's both. But either way, like,
I think it's more the fact of not just that they gave up 9, but that they gave up 7 in one period. And they gave up, and 6 of those points were from the man, the myth, the legend, Mika Zibanejad, baby. He had a hat trick and a triple assist. Okay.
Can I just point out 2 things? That one, it was a natural hat trick.
Yes.
And it's the first natural hat trick, I believe, in franchise history that was scored 1 even strength, 1 power play, and 1 shorthanded goal. And he scored 2 goals on 4 shots. He scored on 75% of the shots he took. I know that's the bare minimum amount of shots you can take to have that percentage, but like, he could have easily gone crazy and ripped more shots. Instead, he found 3 assists in the process. Like, think about that. That's ridiculous. And the fact that Panarin, who is easily their best player, in my opinion, no disrespect to Zibanejad or Kreider, Buchnevich, or even anyone in the goaltending department who could think they'll be better, or on the defensive end of things, like Fox and Miller, who have both done wonders for this team, and Lindgren. Like, Panarin, I think, is by far the best player on the team. Just because he's getting paid the most doesn't mean he is, but I think in this case it's fair to associate the two because he's playing like he's worthy of the $11.5 million a year, just over $11.5 million a year, and he only had 2 points in this game. The fact that he only had 2 points in this game and they still scored 9 goals is just mind-boggling. And yes, Zibanejad has 6 points, but not all of them were to Buchnevich. He had 2 assists to Buchnevich. You know, he also assisted Jacob Trouba. He assisted Philip Hedl, I'm pretty sure. No, not Philip Hedl. Who did he assist? He assisted the 2 Buchnevich goals. He assisted Jacob Trouba. Oh, that's all 3 assists.
Zibanejad assisted Trouba, and by the way, that was a rocket, man. Beauty.
Yeah, that was.
That was a nice shot.
That was.
Also,
he put it right on the tape. I mean, Strome put it right on the tape.
Yeah, that was great.
Also had a nice pass. Zibanejad cut into the zone. He scored the power play goal. High glove on Carter Hart.
Also,
by the way,
we gotta understand
this year, and I can't believe I picked him to win the Vezina because I should have known that there was almost too much. Similar to the way Dan Rosen and Mike Johnson made their predictions on the East Division before the season, and they said, you know, I'd like to think the Rangers could be a playoff team, and a lot went right for them last year. But Mike Johnson said it's almost too good to be true. Like, too much went right for the Rangers last year that they're due for a step back. And I said, you know what? I don't agree with it as a Rangers fan, but as a hockey fan, and if I were to analyze it myself, I can understand that. Because you almost can never recreate that same thing. Like with the Lightning, when they had that juggernaut of a season and were like second all time in points per season, like, yeah, they won the cup the next year, but their regular season wasn't nearly as good as what they
got swept in the first round.
Had to step back. They really had to step back. And even though they won the cup in the end, that's because they had the break, because they weren't playing like they were going to win the cup that year.
They got very lucky with the whole pandemic, man.
The same thing happened with Carter Hart, and I should have expected that when I projected him. We did our way too early projections, and I stuck with it when we did our actual, like, meaning projections for him to win the Vezina. That's just ridiculous, and I can't believe I did it. I'm calling myself out for it. Like, Carter Hart is not.
I don't know what you were thinking, man. I did not think he was like Vezina worthy. Like,
I didn't think. Yeah, like, I thought after the incredible year he had, he could build on it. But like, I should have known. Like, too much went right for the Flyers last year. As the same thing with the Rangers. Like, they were as hot as you could possibly be heading into that break, and they just, like, I know they lost in 7 games to the Islanders, but they got their asses handed to them on a silver platter. It just wasn't close. Like, they were dominated. They had to come back in almost all those games. They were down 3-1 at one point. The fact that they got to a game 7 was a miracle in its own. So
I don't know, man. I thought like Carter Hart was the reason they were still in that game. Like, I think he's like why they were in 7, but I don't think he was Vezina worthy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I thought he'd make the jump. I was wrong, and I'm admitting it. And I don't think he'll be that kind of elite for the next at least like 2 or 3 years.
Also, a point that I gotta mention, man. Mika Zibanejad is now in the history books. He now has the record for most points scored in a single period. 6 points. All 6 points in one period. Okay.
He's the only other player to do that is in one period.
Brian Trottier, 1979 or something, like a long time ago. Okay. So he's basically the leaderboard for most points in a period. I feel like people were trying to say that Mika got lucky last year. No, sir, man. It was not a fluke, okay? If anything this year, or at least the start of this year, was a fluke. Having COVID, no fans,
and like I said
like
before, having COVID in one player, you never know one player. But like, it took him 3.5 weeks. He started to produce more points, and he was slowly getting in because he wasn't going to hit the ground running like crazy right away. He took that next leap, but he's not a top 5 player in the game like McKinnon or Kucherov or McDavid. Like none of those.
He's one of the best at his position.
Right. He is one of them, but he's not like overall in the game that I would expect him to completely just rip it up coming in. Like, he's still going to ease into it. That's always how he's been. And I'm always very, very pleasantly surprised with the result. And it's satisfying to know. But like now that he's in this swing, obviously it took him like 3.5 weeks to get into the season. And then he was injured a little bit, so he missed a game here and there too. Now that he's back into it, he's battled off COVID, a couple points here and there. And even if he's not scoring points, whether, that's both goals and assists for those who don't know how it works in scoring. A point is a goal or an assist. It's both. Then he's creating high-end chances. And he's making the right plays, and they might not be able to cash in because either they make a bad pass or they miss a shot or a goalie makes a save. You're not going to.
Right. So, yeah, I forgot to mention, because of how amazing the offense was, Georgiev had an amazing save in that game. He literally he did a split, and like Steve Dangett's like, ouch,
I was surprised. Like, I'm not being biased here. Like, that's a save. If any other goaltender made it, I would put it in the top 10. But that save didn't make the top 10 on the NHL top 10 saves of the week. And there were
I think it's just because of who he is, I feel like
I don't know. I mean, like, there were 2 saves I would have put.
Come on, man. You're telling me a Fleury or
no, not those. I'm saying on like the back end of things. Like if it's as long as it's
maybe not because of like what the game was like. Maybe they look for a storyline. Maybe because if the game was closer, been more.
Who knows?
That might be.
I don't know how they rank these things, but whatever. Like, he'll get one eventually. He's got the talent to do it.
Even Brendan Lemieux scored in this game, which was pretty significant because he's been in a little slump of his own. So I just good for him, man.
And Adam Fox and Pavel Buchnevich showed that being out of the lineup that first game was really a killer because
it was very costly. I mean, look how close the game was without them. The game before.
Yeah, they combined for 5 points. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. So right, and then the second game, we were still without our previous coach, which I don't want to talk about this game so much because it wasn't great. But Panarin had a good goal. I'll say that. But before we get to our third game, Josh. Yeah, I mean, I know, but like whatever. It was very close. It was like till like the last 2 minutes. So props to them for keeping it close that long. But still, it was just rough. It was just rough. I mean, it was tough. It wasn't a lot of shots going on. Like only 3 guys had a lot of shots. So it was tough. And yeah. Anyway, there's been a conversation that maybe like people don't have faith in Quinn. And I'm just like, well, look at the game before, but then I'm like, no way, it's not really him. The other guy, did his lineups, nullback or whatever. So do you think this is like an omen or just a fluke, or do you think like Quinn still deserves the job, or we need more time, or what do you think?
I think he's the right guy to have around because of how young some of these guys are, like still Capo Caco and Alexi Lafreniere, and obviously Igor Shesterkin and Keandre Miller and Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren, all these guys, and even Libor Hayek, because even though he's been in the league for like 2 years, hasn't played a lot due to injury. And Philip Hedl also, I should mention, and Brett Howden even still, that this is a young team. They are the youngest team in the NHL at the moment. By whatever the statistic is, like they're the youngest team in the NHL.
Yeah, their average age is like
players under the age of 25 or less, or something like that.
Yeah, like look at all these young guys: Fox, Hedl,
right? And they still have
Howden,
they still have Nils Lundqvist and Vitaly Kravtsov, by the way, should be coming up eventually.
I forgot to mention he's coming soon, baby. He just he would have come sooner, but he has to do COVID protocols for 10 to 14 days. So like by the end of the week, we should start seeing
all that stuff. So
by the way, is this a big deal? Like, do you think this could change? Like, think about it. He's been in the KHL, right?
Right.
So do you think, I'm not saying exactly the same, but do you think we could have a sort of like a mini Kaprizov of our own? Like, because he's been in the KHL for a while.
Who knows? I
And I'm
know I've
not
been
pulling for rookie of the year. I'm just saying that production,
yeah, like he was a top overall pick, similar to Kaprizov. So yeah, maybe we can. But I mean, look, he was doing excellent in the KHL. It's a shame his team lost because he could have won something more. But okay, he's coming over, and hopefully he'll be a very, very positive enforcement. So we'll see. But with that being said, um, that this is all being said. They're the youngest team still with guys like Kravtsov and Lundqvist in the prospect pool, and they also still have Braden Schneider out there. So
I know. We love Braden Schneider, but I just feel like it's gonna be hard for him to leapfrog over Jones and
right.
Richardson. If he does, that shows how talented he is. But I don't know. We'll have to see.
The bottom line is,
I definitely would like one of those guys to come.
Get even younger at some point because they have those prospects still lying around. With that being said, I think Quinn's the right guy for the development process, but I think this team is at somewhat of a stage where they can win now and might not be able to win a cup, but they can definitely be a playoff team, I think, under the right coaches. I think if any guy could do it in their organization at a head coaching level, it's going to be however we pronounce this. Could you pull it up for me?
Yeah, sure.
It's really embarrassing. I literally, it's not Chuck, it's Chris.
Oh, sorry.
It's Kris.
What?
It's Kris. Yeah. Chris Knoblauch.
I'll say Knoblauch. Knoblauch or Knoblauch.
So there you have it. With that being said, I know he's only coached 3 games, but if there's one significant change you see as to how much better this team is playing under him on a consistent basis, because yeah, they're only 2-1 under him. But if you look at what it is, there's no freaking line changes every 5 minutes. That's what I can't get my head around.
That's why I'm upset, because I'm like, Quinn seems like a good coach.
He played those lines in different combinations, and it doesn't freaking work. You see that all it took for that Kreider-Zibanejad-Buchnevich line to get back to form was Buchnevich just to recompose himself after dealing with COVID for a good 3.5 weeks, getting over the symptoms. Like, he was free to play. He didn't contaminate anything. I'm saying, like, with the after effects.
We got the rust.
Yeah, exactly. It takes some time, and he was too quick to assume, no, like, he's not the answer. Like, we have to move that line, and now we have to take Panarin and play with him. Like, no, they proved that last year. They didn't need Panarin to play with Zibanejad in order for them to be a successful team. Like you've always mentioned to me, they can have a pick your poison line where you either go after Zibanejad or you go after Panarin instead of killing 2 birds with 1 stone when you play against both of them on the same line. That's not the case. Now they've put together, or not they, because Quinn didn't do anything with it, but Chris Knoblauch put together Chris Kreider, Pavel Buchnevich, Mika Zibanejad. That line's tearing it up for them under his play and his coaching. Panarin, Strome, Blackwell, as you mentioned, kind of subbing in for Jesper Fast.
Perfect.
Even Kakko, because Kakko, Hedel, and they're not even playing with DiGiuseppe, who's a crucial part to the physical aspect of the game they play, is ridiculous. And I can't get my head around it as to how many freaking times David Quinn has changed the lines. He's a good development coach. He's the right guy to have around a young team like this for the development purposes. But this team is ready to win at a certain level, and I don't think that he wants obviously he wants to win, but I don't think that he wants to embrace that by changing up these lines and trying to find the best fit for the youngest players. That's what you have veterans for. I know that we just said this is the youngest team in the league, but Panarin's not the youngest guy in the world. He's just entering the prime of his career. Been around long enough to know. So has Zibanejad, so has Kreider, even Pavel Buchnevich. And then obviously on the defensive side of things, Jacob Trouba's been in the year for the last 4 or 5 years, is definitely a guy you could see. Georgiev is too. So Keith Kincaid, I know they just brought him in, but still, like, I can't get my head around it. And Jacques Martin, even like the coaching staff, he's not new onto the scene. I mean, for the Rangers he is, but not in the NHL he's not. David Oliver's been with this organization a couple of years. Like, he's been here longer than Quinn, and I can't deal with it anymore. It's almost like, I don't know about Jacques Martin as much, but it's almost been a godsend that Quinn and Oliver are not coaching this team now, because Oliver knows it's wrong and doesn't do anything to stop it. So that's my thought.
So what are you thinking? Because I have 3 ideas in my mind. 1, JD and Gortz get involved and tell Quinn, change your game or it's done. Okay. 2, they just cut the axe early, or they leave, or they shelf Quinn for a while, as long as they can, for Knoblauch to see what they have, right? Or 3, they just cut it entirely and they get Gallant. So
I want it to be either the second or third option. I don't think that they should I don't think it should be the first. I think they should keep Quinn around still, but I don't think he should be the head coach. I think that maybe
Come on, man. How many guys that get demoted and stay? It doesn't happen.
I think he should be I think he should be an assistant coach on this team. He should be the role David Oliver has. I'm sorry, Oliver. Like, I respect you, but like, you'll find a job somewhere else. Cut him, and honestly, go out and get Gerard Gallant, because he knows what it's like to coach a team from the bare minimum. He did it with Vegas. They had experience as players, obviously, but no chemistry almost whatsoever. The only two guys you could say really had chemistry on that team were Riley Smith and Jonathan Marshall. So,
and that's because they were teammates already in Florida.
Other than that, like, William Carlson, out of nowhere. David Perron, out of nowhere. Shea Theodore, out of nowhere. Ryan Reeves, out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, just to name a few
and they
guys.
Used to have James Neal when he was still good. And
exactly. He didn't play with any, maybe David Perron, but like,
that David Perron also, yeah.
That hadn't been for like a good, like 7 or 8 years when they were both on Pittsburgh together, you know? So whatever, like, I don't know what to say about it beside the fact that just like, they've done an excellent job. And I really didn't think it was going to work out too well until I heard that Knoblauch at least had been an assistant coach at a high level for a very, very competitive team and under a guy like Alain Vigneault, because he was there last year with Philadelphia and they were the top team. So, yeah, and he's done a great job. Him and the coaching staff they've brought up have done a great job with this Rangers team. Obviously, that's not in the AHL clearly, and I'm excited for them to play tonight. And then
yeah, I hope it works out for Quinn, but if it doesn't, I really hope we just get Gallant so we could suck it to the Islanders, like, because we would have a better coach than they would.
The Islanders aren't getting rid of Barry Trotz anytime soon, so we know they're not going after him. The question is, who is? So
a lot of teams could use him, man.
A lot of teams could use him.
I'm actually thinking Seattle's going to go for him. They're going to, like, think, hey, it worked the first time. Why not?
Yeah, what the heck? Who cares?
They might actually do that. I'm not even kidding. I really believe that. I hope not.
Either way.
Well, actually, I hope so because I want to be successful, but I hope not if it affects if we fired Quinn, then I'm going to like, oh, shoot.
Okay, whatever. F it. Let's go to the last game real quick, and let's just like talk about like what.
All right, let's just point this out, man. This game was a nail biter, and I loved every minute of it, man. Oh my god, every moment was tense. Buchnevich, I love like how Fox went in. I thought he was going to do that goal he did against the Islanders last year, where he was going to.
Yeah, I know what you're talking. I thought he was going to do that. I thought he was going to do the play he ended up doing. It's not the first time they've ran it. He did it with Brendan Lemieux against the Flyers in the 9-0 win. He did it against the Caps in this.
Yeah, I love it. I love how they make it so close and claustrophobic. Like, you just get in your face. That means it's either going to be a sure thing or it's going to be way off. Like, I love it. It's not even like close. It's either going to be all or nothing. Like, I love it. He put stick to tape, man. Stick to tape. I love it, man. The second goal was such a beauty. Oh my God. Mika just pushed off Brendan Dillon, who kind of is a goon a little bit. Yeah, because Ryan Lindgren, I don't know if it was this game or the other game, he like knocked into Ovi and everybody agrees. Everybody agrees it was a clean hit, but Dillon like went after him. I'm just like, dude, first of all, it's a clean hit. And second of all, it's Ovi. Ovi's one of the toughest mothers out there, okay? He doesn't need your protection. I know he's your star player, but he literally can take care of himself, and it was a clean hit. So he could, like, come on. So anyway, it just felt good, like, getting back at Dillon for that. So some people are arguing that Mika slashed. I don't know. It's hard for me to see.
I don't think he slashed. I think if there was anything he had called for, it'd probably be a cross check.
I think it was more like a slight tap, like he pushed off a little bit, but it was. I feel
pushed off. There wasn't a slash. If there's a penalty, it's going to be a cross check, not a slash.
Right. So like he pushed him off a little bit, which is what people are saying. But it was a great hit, man. He went in his face, pushed him out of the way, and it only took him 1 second to do like a little move, and boom, roofed it. He's so good at that, and it was beautiful.
Goal he scored against the Flyers, same type of goal he scored against the Penguins. You know, like
he just loves to roof that thing. He's very good at roofs.
Exactly. And then
finally, the third goal was so stupid. I usually only care about empty netters on 2 occasions. Number one, it's like a very like obviously every empty netter means it's a close game, but it's like a super super close game. In the sense that like
it relieves a lot of pressure and
they can actually score if you don't like you have to score this, you know. Basically, It's like a far goal, like you score from far because you need to like just end it, right? Or 2, it's a hat trick because I do count hat tricks like that.
Yeah,
you know? I think like if it's their only goal, I just like whatever, and that's the case for Brett Howden. It was so stupid. Ryan Strome could have scored. Props for him being a good teammate and giving to Brett Howden. But let's be honest, man, it's his first goal of the year. He's literally expansion fodder. Like, I hope to God. I know you hate Gauthier. I know you hate Gauthier, but it's got to be Howden to go to Seattle, not Gauthier. I'm sorry.
They put him out there because they know the state of play he's in. He hadn't scored a goal, and he only had like 2 assists that entire season. And you also know that, obviously, like, you're putting him out there by the time the puck's already out of their zone, and he's going for an empty net goal. But I know that it's not a power play and a penalty kill, but you're still shorthanded because they've pulled their goalie, and Howden is normally on the penalty kill out there. So it fits both cases. It fits the fact that he's used to being out there down a man with his team out defending against that opportunity. And it's also fitting because puck's out of the zone. He needs a goal. Let him get confident, get on the board. Look, after Mika Zibanejad scored that empty net goal against the Caps, I know he had put a little bit of play together, but that, for me, is really what got him going because he had a couple assists the next time. He had some much better opportunities against the Flyers the next time. That was the next game they played in Philly. And you know what happened after that. I mean, like, bounced back with a 6-point game and now a 2-point game against Washington. He had chances on Friday night that, even though he didn't score or have an assist, he was great. I think he's going to do great tonight. So, Joey, right before we finish it tonight, I think that there's only one way we could go out on this episode, and that's to have a prediction for tonight's game with the score.
All right, we're playing Buffalo, so 5-0 Cap.
Easy. Okay, and it's at the Garden. Let's not forget that.
I know, man, but 9-0, great game, statement game, never going to happen again. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. So let's see. You say 5-0?
5-0, man. Buffalo sucks. We're at the Garden. Fuck them. No Eichel. Like, come on.
Okay, that was very convincing. Your logic.
I always bring points, man. Sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're right, but I bring up points all the time. Okay, just that's.
I'm gonna throw a nice 4-1 win. 4-1. I think the Sabres probably like pull the goalie down 3-0 with like 3 minutes left. They score a goal, then they pull again, and the Rangers get an empty netter. That's how I'd predict it to end if it were to in any way for a 4-1 win. But if not, I'll take a win anyway. You get it. So,
I mean,
thank you.
I think that's just what we're dealing with here. I think like we're both agreeing it's gonna be 5 goals. It's gonna be 2 in the first, 2 in the second, 1 just crazy.
Yeah,
one. On either side, it will be irrelevant because it will either be 4-1 or 5-0. So yeah.
There's only one thing though that I have a major problem with the problem in this game that's coming up, and that's that there's not a lot of pressure because it's Buffalo, but there's a lot of pressure because it's Buffalo. Because if the Rangers don't win, then that's who the Sabres are snapping their win streak against. I mean, they're losing.
I would be very, 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 very embarrassed.
I will be like dumbfounded if the Rangers lose this game.
But let's be honest, they did lose to Buffalo in the past. Although I don't think
they lost to Buffalo in the past. Let's also make something clear, and that was in Buffalo, and that was when they were not.
I think they know this team. I think they know this team better than I think they know this team and New Jersey.
No Jack Eichel this time also. No Jack
Eichel. Like, I'm sorry, but there's no way they lose to this team again.
And Skinner sucks now. Like, let's just be realistic.
No Skinner. Hall, I don't know what happened to him. Stahl is whatever. So unless Olofsson or Reinhardt have like the best game of their lives, it's not happening, man. It's not.
Or Linus Ullmark stands on his head if he's starting even.
I know, man, but how many games? Like, it doesn't matter how great the goalie is, and if you can't score, it doesn't matter. You have to at least score 1 goal. So, like,
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's gonna do it.
Anyway, Buffalo, you're fucked. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. As Utri would say. So anyway.
Yes.
I think we're ready to wrap it up. So on that note, thank you all so much for tuning into the JJ Sports Podcast. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. We like your feedback. We want to hear from you, what you want to see us do different, if you want to see us add anything. And with that being said, for the final time signing off tonight, I'm Josh.
And I'm Joey.
Have a great night. Thank you so much.